The elevator. Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Tap, okay. Okay. So I'm gonna move on to the public comment section. Now, we have everybody's up here. If you don't have anything circled in particular, I'm just gonna touch base with you and see if you want to talk now before we go into each individual agenda item. So I can be really clear, Miss Eileen, you did not circle any of them. Do you have an overwhelming message, or do you want to wait until we bring up each
I
one?
would prefer one.
Okay. Which one did you want to talk about? Or do you have any one particular, or just want me to wait and call it?
Yeah, I think we.
Okay. Same thing with Miss Ann Schneider. Same thing. You want to wait on that one? Sean Holmgren?
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir.
Members of the board, Mr. Williams. I'm Sean Holmgren. I live on Lake DeSoto, right across from the hospital complex. I understand that your board and the hospital authority were originally set up for noble purposes many decades ago. Provide health care and hospital care to the poor people living in this rural county. The indigent population is what you serve. All 15 or so of them that remain. While there was originally a need for your hospital authority to serve thousands of poor families, it seems apparent to me that your purpose has been dramatically reduced ever since the Affordable Care Act was introduced, providing health care to all regardless of where they live. Your regional function and purpose has been greatly diminished. And it stands to reason that the hospital authority itself may even be disbanded or redefined in the future. This is why I'm appealing to you to not do damage to our city. In particular, do no damage to the property values, safety, and security of the downtown entertainment district. I'm not talking about out in a field out on 90 in some place where you could erect barbed wire and nobody would notice, talking about your entertainment district. I understand that your RFPs defined another tenant for the Hospital of Languish with little interest for-profit hospitals to run a traditional medical and ER hospital here, but looking at the purpose the hospital was built for, it was to patch people up and send them home after giving great medical care. It was never intended to bring danger and drug dealers and criminals from other parts of the state to stay here in a penitentiary style lockdown facility. That would destroy people's perception of safety as they walk around the lake or through our quaint downtown entertainment district just 2 blocks away. I want you to do no harm. Remember, you are our neighbor and will have to look at us in the eye in the supermarket years from now, after the damage you do is done. Do not allow Meridian Healthcare to expand their original presentation, which suggested that they would have an outpatient clinic here and probably move their methadone clinic off of Main Boulevard there, as well as operations from Gainesville, hence creating 100 new jobs. Sounded like a beautiful proposition, but that all sounds so innocent until you suggest a lockdown contract with the Department of Corrections with armed guards, razor wire, and other implements that must accompany the maximum security needs that would be generated. It isn't kosher with me that you would allow this in an entertainment district where children play. I only need about another 30 seconds if the board
Yes.
would allow me.
Go ahead.
Govern yourselves like people who care about the community they live and work in. You are going to have to answer to these decisions for a long time to come, and I will personally hold you responsible if you make decisions that destroy my peaceful enjoyment of my little country neighborhood. Last sentence. You should know exactly what is going into any property you administer to any city while you're still in control of this hospital authority. No guessing games or saying later on, who could have knew that there was gonna be a lockdown facility because it wasn't in the original presentation. I'm saying you should know exactly what is going in before
Mr. Holmgren, I
allowing the
appreciate it.
construction of any downtown by a for-profit company using
Sure.
taxpayer-generated assets that you're charged with safeguarding. Thank you, board.
Thank you,
God
sir.
bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holmgren.
For sure, may I make a comment?
Please.
I just want to make sure that before there's any other public comments, that it's clear to everybody in attendance that the intent is not to have any type of penitentiary campus here. There will be no barbed wire, there'll be no fences. That is not what is gonna happen.
I agree. Well, I was gonna let Mr. Savoy take care of that, but we'll keep moving through the general public comments. Ms. Mayo, did you want to do it now, or do you want to wait until we get to the next,
I'll wait.
specific term? Okay. Ms. Susan Phillip, do you have a general comment, or do you want? Susan Phillip? Don't see her. Mr. Warren? Yeah, do you want to do a general?
I got a lot. I got general, I got specific, on and on and on. I'm gonna speak on every topic,
Do the first one.
right? I mean, that is.
Yes, sir. This is-
Constitution, Right,
yeah.
right.
This is the time for the general.
Just wanted to make sure, I don't wanna be out of order. Y'all ain't gonna let me get away with what Trump get away with. Yeah, ain't quite. That's the one for the record. Works for you.
Yes, sir.
Great stoic philosopher Epictetus once said we should only speak when we need to. Greatest stoic philosopher besides Marcus Aurelius. Mr. Chairman, board, it is very disturbing and disappointing when I have sat in this very room and heard governor appointed board members vote and give orders to direct staff, lawyers, and directors. And nothing has taken place in months. Nothing has taken place in months. Everybody has seen it, watched it, and can attest to that. And we can all look at me like we're crazy, but we know that it's true. As I continue, it was stated by several board members how tired they were, mainly Don Kennedy, spending money every month on empty buildings, it was said. And a final RFP was voted on with a deadline of April the 17th. And I remember vividly, we're gonna do this RFP. Whoever puts their name in the pot, that's it. We're not going any further. If not, we're gonna surplus everything to the county. RFPs went out, deadline, April the 17th. Everybody filed. People were supposed to be entertained. Crickets. Since that time, no concrete action has taken place with those parties who played by the rules of the board in the RFP. However, a former commissioner with the EMS business without equipment meet Dale on the side of the road and strike a deal for a building after the RFP deadline. Then to add insult to injury, board members prioritized the former commissioner using the building over all others who filled out the RFP. Not to mention that Chris Robinson is the registered agent for Toby's business, which Todd Kennan is also his legal representative and law partner. Could one of you please help me make sense of how people keep jumping the list and jumping the line, going through every process like everybody else? This is a clear violation of Florida Statute 287.057 regarding RFP guidelines date had ended. And also Florida Statute 112.313 as it relates to the conflict of interest of former commissioner with Chris Robinson being a registered agent and Todd Kennan being his law firm partner. I ask that the board pause this action for an opinion from both the Attorney General and the Board of Ethics in the Florida Bar. My team has reached out to well-known attorney Ricky L. Strong, who is the senior partner of Howard, Butcher, and Strong. He is a graduate of FAMU as well as an adjunct professor at FAMU. He is highly specialized in healthcare law, administrative law, not to mention he was inside counsel for Florida Department of Health. I would hope that this board would heed to an attorney who actually has experience in healthcare and administrative law and not the rookie who specializes in family law.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Ms. Griffin, Deborah Griffin,
Oh, wait.
okay? And Mr. Butler, Gerald Butler. All right. Okay, so that's end of our public comment. We're gonna move on to approval of our consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we are going to move on to new business. We are going to invite Mr. Don Savoy up. Not at this moment. I want to address, this is specifically for the Meridian Behavioral Healthcare, the status of our agreement negotiations and their proposal. And I wanted, everybody to have an opportunity. I think this has been a hot item here to go ahead and let's have your public comments. That way, when, we can have Mr. Savoy up here, he'll be able to address them specifically as he hears them. So I'm just going to run right back through these. And basically the order I flipped them up, and Mr. Sylvester, you are, you want to go first? You want me to wait and put
It
it?
doesn't matter to me. I mean.
Well, you're just, I'm
it
flipping them
doesn't
back
matter-
and forth.
doesn't matter.
Yes, sir.
Remind everybody, about-
Hang on one second.
can we just remind everybody? about-
Yes, and just, you know, and this is a popular one, right? So everybody keep it as close to 3 minutes as you can. I give you a few minutes, a few seconds to go over. Please don't abuse it. I got a pile of people to get through. I appreciate it. Mr.
Basically,
Warren.
I bet y'all gonna do what you want. I basically don't give a damn about Meridian. All I care about is the promise that this board made to people who filled out RFPs.
Okay,
Y'all are so quick. You, Mr. Chairman, you run the board. Y'all are so quick to jump in the bed with everything else other than following the rules that y'all voted on and set in place. My question has continued to be, why have not other people that y'all voted for contract negotiations have not been met? Y'all have RFPs that have been submitted, but y'all have taken no action, nor have y'all as a body and as a chairman followed up with the director nor the attorneys. And y'all got all type of other stuff on the agenda, special meetings. A combined meeting with the city. That's not even on, when did y'all vote on that? Staff is just running wild, doing what they want to do, and y'all just sit here and approve it? This is not order. I swear to God, if Ron DeSantis would get on, I swear he did not appoint y'all for
This
that.
isn't on topic.
I am on topic. I'm on topic about Meridian, and I'm on
He's on
topic
topic
about
Meridian.
why y'all have overlooked other contracts that were on the agenda, or should be on the agenda, as well as Meridian. This is what I'm talking about. I don't give a damn about Meridian. We agreed that Meridian gonna go over there. Don't we? Didn't we agree, Don? I got text message, we agreed. So my issue is not Meridian. Y'all gonna do the Meridian deal. Stop fooling the people. I'm not putting a dog in pony show.
To let the.
Yeah, we're gonna do, I know y'all gonna do Meridian. Y'all already done start crafting language. That's out the window. I'm concerned whether or not y'all gonna do everybody else. The small people. We understand y'all already y'all done bowed the knee to
Later
Meridian.
on the agenda, that's not. this-
It is on the
I
agenda.
said it's later on the agenda, it's
What
not,
later on
it's
the
not the
agenda?
top, what you're talking about.
But you don't know,
This
I'm
is
talking
about,
about Meridian.
Hang
Everything
on,
I
hang
said
on,
is
hang on.
Meridian. You're not the chair anymore. If the chair have a
I
problem.
called a
with it,
point of order.
We'll call a point of
I
order.
did.
We'll call one.
I
It's up to the
did,
chair
that's
whether
what
it's
I
on
did,
or
I
not.
called the point of order to the chairman.
Well,
And he
but-
is, and I'm saying continue.
Exactly. So he ignored you.
No, I'm not ignoring. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I agree that you're on the topic of the RFP. You're talking about Meridian. You're bringing
Exactly,
up about
exactly,
your other RFPs.
Exactly. Power structure wanna be a good old boy, ain't gonna never get in the club. So my question is,
It's,
my issue is when we're gonna take everybody's RFP seriously, Chairman? That's all I'm asking. It's not fair to have people to go out, volunteer their time and get people together and make this campus functional. Along with Meridian, we asked and we said we're gonna get Meridian in here and we're gonna get Meridian partners, such as pharmacists and everything else. Meridian was supposed to be the hub and everything else around was supposed to complement it. That's what we agreed on.
Mhm.
That's what we shook hands on, that's what we verbally said. Anything other than that, I don't agree with.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Ms. May, you didn't circle it, I didn't know if you had anything to say about this, okay. All right. Mr. Holmgren circled this, but I think he already made his comment, he's not here anymore. And then, let's see, Miss Eileen. Am I saying Morlou?
Yeah, that's fine. It's
Okay.
Good enough. It's good enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here today. My name is Eileen Morio.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm here to talk about the actual hospital and its location, which I find is not appropriate at all for Lake City. I do not think that it should be in the middle of town or around the lake where you have a Derby Pavilion where you have all your festivities going on. You have a playground for children in the backyard over there. You have other people walking around, jogging in the morning, going around the lake and so forth and so on. I just don't think that it's the right place for it. I've checked Meridian, its actual website, and I've gone back in the history of Meridian, and I've seen that there are problems already at the location where they are. When I say that, you have testimony from different people. I can say, can give you the names, or one is Joy Stevens, you have another was Jeannie Carr, another Josie Corbett, and another Mrs. Z, who have gone through a lot of different problems with the Lakeshore Hospital Authority, with the Lakeshore's actual hospital where it is now. All I'm saying simply is that this is not the place for it. That's my opinion. I think it would be appropriate to put it somewhere else. And I don't think that I'm the only one thinking the same way. I would say that's just about all I have to say really is that it is not the place for that type of thing. That's it.
Thank you, Miss Helen.
Right, thank you.
Miss Ann Reifschneider, thank you, sorry about that.
And I assume you look like Walt.
Please. I thought we were gonna be nice to each other, but it's all right.
I appreciate the board giving me this time. This is the first time I've ever done this, so please be patient with me. I want to tell you quickly two incidences that I had last Wednesday, which was July 3rd. I was parked in my car outside of Dollar Tree, which is over there by Aldi's. And a man came out of the store, out of Dollar Tree, had nothing, no purchases in his hand. His bike was chained to the post right in front of my car, so I saw everything. He had a long sleeve shirt on, he took his shirt off, and right here on his belt, he had some type of a cutter, about like that size right here. As he took his shirt off and he turned to the side, he had a sheathed hunting knife that much sticking out of his back pocket, so I imagine it was about that long. All right. He had some kind of a container. It wasn't snuff because it didn't have anything on it. And he took something white out and he was sniffing it. All right. He was obviously right-handed because his weapons were on the right side. I was talking to my husband, who at that time was down at the VA down in Gainesville, and he said, call 911. I did. I explained it to the 911 operator. Sent me to a lady at the Lake City Police Department, explained it to her. I gave the total description because he was closer. It was about as far as that sign right there from me. All right. And I watched him walk away. All right. I told him where he was going. I never saw any indication that the Lake City Police Department checked it out. All right. Several hours later.
She said she was new.
All right. Several hours later, my husband needed to pick up a CD scan from the VA, so we were going down Bea where it crosses 41. Man comes out of the woods, has a tourniquet on his arm, he's shooting up right there in public. This was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, my concern is these are the people that are law enforcement officers, our police department, our sheriff's department are going out and arresting. How would they know the weapons that this first man had on him? How would they know that this second man just shot himself up with, I don't know, whatever it is you put in your arm? Okay, this is a danger, not only to our public, but it's also a danger to our law enforcement people. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Miss Deborah Griffin. Oh, Debbie, sorry.
Quite all right. How's everybody doing tonight?
Little tense.
Having fun? All right. Not intended to be, just want to express our opinion here. So, I'm actually a resident right across the lake. Business owner, property owner downtown. I'm just gonna read the petition that we put out there, on June the 17th. I'm a resident of Lake City, Florida. From my home, I can see the site where the mental health facility, both inpatient and outpatient, is scheduled to be set up. 2 blocks away, children play in the public park, sponsored by Rotary, and families enjoy Lake DeSoto, a natural beauty that brightens our daily walks. These sites form part of our vibrant downtown community, which includes businesses as well as multifamily dwellings and single-family homes. We fear this new facility could disrupt this harmony, as we've heard from others and probably more. Mental health facilities play a vital role. We're not denying that, a vital role in supporting individuals with mental health issues or conditions. However, given the real concerns about safety, increased traffic, possible decrease in property value, we're very concerned about that often accompany such facilities. We believe it is crucial to consider alternative locations. Studies show that locations such as these facilities can impact community well-being, particularly in residential areas, and that was sourced from the Journal of Community Psychology. Let's ensure that our city remains safe and pleasant environment for us all, where businesses can thrive, children can play, families can enjoy natural beauty. Our community must have a say in changes that affect our lives. Thus, we urge the Lakeshore Hospital Authority and anybody else that's involved to reconsider the planned location of the facility. And then the petition has been signed since June 17th. We have, last time I checked this morning, was about 240 signatures. Now there was I think it was last meeting, Mr. Kennedy made a statement that he would canvass downtown and residents, and I don't know who he talked to. And I'm glad you did that. So I'm not being derogatory or anything, but here's what I'll tell you I did today. I visited a ton of downtown businesses in this heat, and some of them are closed on Monday, so I couldn't talk to anybody. But I had 8 businesses tell me they don't want any part of having Meridian downtown. So I'm not sure, and that includes from across the lake by me, 2 businesses there, and also downtown. So I would urge you to please, they need to be somewhere. I 100% agree with that, but it doesn't need to be downtown. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, stack them up. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my name is Gerald Butler. I'm the Chief of Police for the Lake City Police Department. Before I start, let me preface by saying I understand the need for additional mental health facilities. However, recently in the local papers and online, along with speaking with citizens in the community, there appears to be some disagreement as to the use of the former hospital by Meridian. As a chief of police, I have concerns the proposed plans for the future hospital are significantly different from what my initial understanding of the proposal was. Now, I agree that there are barriers desperately needed for mental health in rural areas, including availability, access, and acceptability. Meridian has always partnered with the Lake City Police Department, and I believe we will and will continue to have an excellent working relationship with Meridian no matter what is decided. Now, Meridian services on Michigan Street include Recovery Center, Counseling, Gateway Treatment Center, the Methadone Clinic, and the Williams Manor. However, Meridian's main website has brochures for 17 different programs the company offers at different locations. What programs do they plan on offering at Lakeshore? One rumor was an FDOC lockdown contract with Meridian. I believe this rumor has been debunked. But will the facility be a lockdown facility, but not for FDOC? I refer to their diversion recovery services brochure, which states the diversion recovery team at Meridian focuses on diversion, potential for cases with extensive incarcerations, or being committed to forensic state hospitals. Once defendants have been identified with a mental illness or substance use disorder, forensic specialists assist them and their attorneys with criminal proceedings. Exactly what does that mean? Is it a lockdown, but just now at FDOC? I'm not sure. Also, we deal extensively with predator enlargement acts, which Meridian deals with. Matter of fact, it's been so common with us, there's a specific policy with the Lake City Police Department and most law enforcement agencies to deal with that. The Baker Act is the Florida Mental Health Act, which deals with involuntary examinations, which means they're against their will. Also, the only receiving facility in Columbia County is the Meridian facility on Michigan Street. I've got procedures for the officers to follow, the reasons that they have to go, it's all covered by statute. But the important thing is the impact on the police department. Not just individuals from Columbia County or other county LEOs. I believe there's now 5 counties who bring their Baker Acts to the Lake City facility, Meridian. If something occurs after the agency is left, the Lake City Police Department is called to assist to handle that. And just for the last 5 years at the Michigan Street location, in 2019, we responded 281 times to calls for service. 2020, 333, 2021, 373 times, 2022, 342 times, and 2023, 413 times.
Sounds like we have a need.
In 5 years, we responded 1,742 calls for service. These calls are also the types that require more than one officer: assaults, batteries, missing persons. One of the most pressing parts is the location of the hospital. It's 0.11 miles from a playground, less than 300 feet from Leon Street, which is the beginning of a residential neighborhood. The amphitheater on Wilson Park is 500 feet, Darby Pavilion 680 feet, the splash pad at a lusty 0.31, downtown Lake City is a quarter mile, Annie Maddox 0.36, and the Lakeshore Hospital building is adjacent to a wooded area where the perimeter is 1.13 miles. If somebody gets in there, we're gonna have to up law enforcement, and I'll wrap it up, sir.
No problem.
I ask the board to consider what I have said here and take this into consideration when making your decision. I am no way speaking disparagingly of Meridian. To the contrary, they provide a desperately needed service to our community. I do, however, ask that you include the city and myself in any discussions as to the use of the campus as a mental health facility, because in addition to the impact on the citizens of Lake City who live near the hospital, and also the citizens who utilize the parks and recreational facilities near the hospital, this will increase the amount of law enforcement calls for service and will result in the city of Lake City incurring costs for individuals brought in from outside the city limits and also outside of Columbia County, in addition to putting additional strain on the limited resources of the police department. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
You said that he don't speak in public comments.
So, sir. Mr. Warren. Let's keep it to a minimum, guys. We're trying to do public comments. I got Miss Phillip, Susan Phillip, did I call you?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you were the one that I got mixed up. Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Susan Phillip. I live on the DeSoto next to the Florida Gateway Foundation. I moved to Lake City from Palm Beach County in 2018. I've had MS since 1999, and I said to my husband that whatever you do, I want to live in the middle of town because I want to be able to, once I can't drive or something with my illness gets worse, I have a lake I can walk around for exercise. Not far for me to walk into town if I need to get a cup of coffee or I want to shop. It was the perfect location. I never in a million years thought that it would turn into a place where I would fear as a 73-year-old woman, walking around my neighborhood because of what Ian was talking about could happen on Lake DeSoto. When I leave my house, it's a long ways for me, and I'm able to walk around a couple of times. But I am afraid that, you know, if something happens to me and I'm stuck someplace where I feel afraid, that kind of X's out why I'm living in Lake City and why I really wanted to live in the middle of town. I don't care that it's in the north side of town. I just care that I want to be part of the community. I grew up in New York City. I'm from North originally, and I just found it a place that would be a simple place for me to retire in and to feel like I would feel safe. So I'm just, as a senior citizen, just airing concerns that I see all the families and people walking around. And I love it that they feel that they can walk around from sunrise to midnight. Like we used to be able to do in Central Park, but that's no longer a possibility. So I don't want that to turn into a place where I just look across the lake and I can't get exercise, or I don't feel safe. And to me, it's a matter of safety for senior citizens and children, and for anybody that wants to enjoy a beautiful city, because I love Lake City. And that's really my concern as like I said, as a senior citizen with a disability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to check online. I don't see any hands raised online. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't know the protocol. I was just hoping that I could. At some point, I came a few minutes late, so I didn't fill out a paper.
That means I gotta let Barbara go. All right. Because this is such a hot topic, I'm making a special one. Barbara, you're killing me. You be nice. And then we're gonna do one more comment.
Yes.
And then we are done with our public comments, and I'm no longer breaking protocol from this point on.
Okay.
Everybody good with that?
Not even for Brandon.
No. Thank you, Spencer. Miss Lemon.
Good evening. My concern is I have no concerns. There's mental health issues. I have no problem with Meridian being there. They'll do their safety and protocol. Sure, there may be extra cost incurred for the city police. Maybe they just need some type of interlocal agreement with the counties. If somebody gets crazy from Union County or Hamilton County, they can bill them for the cost. And as far as the parking lot and the Masons, it's not necessary. The only requirement is the parking be convenient and safe, and we don't have to spend the money to buy that.
It's not Meridian, I'm a little.
It's also on the agenda further down.
Yeah,
We're-
that's true.
That's all. Thank you.
We're gonna hit it again. Don't worry. Yes, sir. And I didn't catch your name, sir, for the,
No worries, I apologize. My name's Jamie Merkel.
okay.
And I, sorry for breaking protocol, and if I step out of line, please just, no ego. Again, my name is Jamie Merkel. I moved here a couple of years ago with my family, well, a few years ago from Key West. Some of you I know from Rotary and Elks and all the other groups that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of. I don't understand, but I respect everybody's point of view. I just did want to share, my arrogance, I thought this was sorted a year ago. I never dreamed that we would be where we are today. I'm deeply passionate about the development of the downtown district. Deeply passionate. As somebody who wants to be involved downtown financially, it's very difficult for me to want to invest in the downtown area here under the circumstances. And now with what's happening with the hospital, that brings even more concern. I'm known in the town primarily for being the guy that bought Mr. Mott's property and have been restoring it for the last 2 years. And as we're finally getting to the end of that, we're looking for things to invest in. And it's a struggle. As a guy coming in from out of town, it's a difficult sell to invest in the downtown district. Looking at the confusion of what's happening here and the passion, it's even more difficult. And then on top of it, I look at my own common sense, I mean, really change generational wealth on one side of the train tracks, and on the other side of the tracks, we can really develop the downtown area to really become like our surrounding communities, like White Springs or Alachua or any of these other bustling, small historic downtown areas. And the last thing I just wanted to include was one of the other things I'm known for is I'm the guy who in November had an interaction with some of Meridian's clientele who had escaped and found themselves inside one of my homes. And it was, they were met with the same thing you guys would meet intruders in your property with, and they immediately surrendered as soon as the first shot was fired. And thankfully, the Lake City Police were there and right now, and they handled themselves professionally, and it was resolved. But my question to you would be, beyond what is better for the community here or downtown, if we cannot control on a small level our security, how are we going to do it on a much larger level? And I'm all about listening to Meridian, but as a guy who retired from private security, this is something I'm passionate about. And if we can't manage that small little facility and we want to quadruple it over here, that's concerning. And I get there's no barbed wire, thankfully, but that's really not the issue anyways. Thank you. Thank you very much.
What's your name?
Thank you, Mr. Buckle.
Jamie Martin.
If you know anybody that want to sell their business downtown, tell them to call me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm ready. to
All
buy.
right, so we have exhausted all the public comments on the new business for the Meridian Behavioral Healthcare thing. I'd like to invite Mr. Savoy up. You heard it, Don.
Make me rich.
We
Put the facility, they're gonna sell out.
teed it up for you. You got plenty of comments to address.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. You know, I've
Good to
been
see
before you guys probably a couple of dozen times. And when I asked Dale Williams to be put on the agenda at the end of May, really it was just to reiterate our continued commitment to this project. We have been on this project for 2 years with y'all. We have done town halls at the school department, which have been noticed and other things. And I do understand the fear. It saddens me. Mental health is important. I heard people say it's important to all of us, just not here. Gentleman just made a comment about Meridian's clientele. Well, our clientele are your neighbors and your citizens, and we serve well over 25,000 people a year. I'll try and answer on some of the questions, but again, I come here just to reiterate our continued support. First thing I'll say is we proposed a detailed project plan that laid out what we would plan to do with every floor of the building. It is in public record. And it has not changed in 2 years. So while I won't speak to, I would call them salacious and uninformed comments that required me to speak to Lake City Reporter a couple of weeks ago, I do feel that we have been on a trajectory of both education and understanding through this whole process. And I think that's absolutely critical. So before I get into some of the questions, I do, since I just came here for a brief statement, I do want to introduce some folks. Because you heard from myself and our Executive Vice President, Lauren Cohn, on more than a few occasions. But our board chair, Mr. Jeff Feller, from Old Florida, has asked to be here. Our vice chair, retired Sheriff Bob Milner, has asked to be here. Our secretary, Stephanie McClendon, has asked to be here, as well as one of our newest board members, but a close ally, in Stuart Wegener. And these are 4 folks that serve on a nonprofit board. They get paid nothing. They give up their time and their hearts to help our communities. And when I'm done, I'd like to give them the opportunity to speak if they choose. That's good.
Yes, sir.
Sure. So I'll say this again. Nothing has changed in our proposal from 2 years ago when we put it before you. Methadone services, outpatient services will not be provided at the hospital. Makes no sense to use a hospital building for that level of care. Gives us the ability to expand Michigan Avenue around outpatient and some of those services, as we said time and time again. But this community lacks an addictions receiving facility. It just doesn't exist. So when we talk about folks dealing with addiction crisis, where do they go? The other place, and prison and jail is not the answer. We can agree with that. The other thing that we're looking to put there is a psychiatric hospital. There is no psychiatric hospital with the Lake City Medical Center. There is none in the region. If you're a Medicare recipient, you must go to Jacksonville, Tallahassee, or to Gainesville for your services. You're taken away from your families. So I encourage everyone to look at the proposal that we put forward 2 years ago. Nothing has changed. One comment is around forensic services. We do two things. So actually, we do a lot with regard to forensic services, Chief Butler. Some of the things we do are we have co-responder teams. They respond along with law enforcement in a car, de-escalate a mental health situation. What that does is divert folks from jail, someone with a mental illness, divert them from jail into treatment. Stop the cycle, break the cycle of law enforcement in that whole process. The other thing we do is we work in Alachua County and with mental health court, and we're working in Lee County now too. What we do is the courts work to, if it's a nonviolent felony or it is a misdemeanor, then if they need treatment, they'll court order treatment, and we'll work with them with our teams to get them on a stable place. Again, your neighbors, your citizens. And then we also do serve folks once they leave jail. If they meet the criteria for our forensic program, we will work with them to make sure they have medication, they have stable housing, they have employment, all of the things that matter to break the cycle and keep someone safe. Regardless of whether we're here providing those services, these individuals will be coming into your community. They do now, every day. We do not have contracts with the Department of Corrections or with federal probation. And we do not serve folks from the prisons. They are served at the prisons, just to bring some clarity. I know I made that point in the Lake City report. So from that standpoint, and some of the materials I've given you in the past, you do not see any increase in crime as it relates to bringing the facility into the area. If anything, you see it decrease some. Drug addicts do not want to be in a mental health facility, at a substance abuse or mental health facility. That's proven, and that's fact. There are other facilities across the state. I've offered for you as trustees to go and visit some in Tallahassee, in Orange County, in Orlando, where they're in the community. And regarding the community, Mr. Chair, as you learned early on in this process, our largest campus in Alachua is adjacent to a county park. And it's also a dog park and a family park. And it has been that way for 25, 30 years. And quite frankly, the only problem I've ever had with that park is sometimes my staff go and smoke when we made it a non-smoking campus. And we immediately addressed that concern as a good neighbor and partner. We've been in this community for over 50 years. So while I understand the concerns, I think that what's most important was that we understand and educate on those things. We've come a long way. I think you all agree. We've come a long way in 2 years on education and understanding. Ms. Chansey, in the May meeting, you mentioned pedophilia and that we treat pedophilia. To set the record straight, we do not treat pedophilia. That is not something that Meridian treats. You can look at me sideways. You don't have to believe me. I can have you meet with our chief medical officer. We do not treat pedophilia. Just straight up. And again, we're adjacent to parks and other things. There are a lot of salacious comments come out, and they come out from ignorance or lack of understanding. And I've been doing this 38 years. The only way you speak to that is to educate, but people have to want to understand and they have to want to listen. I have no problem with giving tours of our campus, as at least 3 of you have taken advantage of. And we look to continue to be good stewards. The last thing I'd say is the community is continuing to grow here. If not now, when, who, and how? Because without that hospital building, as we looked at, there are no viable opportunities currently. And it will continue to be a challenge in the facility we're in. We've been constrained for several years. We asked to borrow space in this building, which we were turned down for, just temporarily. We're working hard to serve the community. We're a growing entity. And one person did ask me recently about the staff, and I didn't have all the answers, so I'm just going to share with you the answers again from our proposal from 2 years ago. Meridian plans to bring over 86 FTE positions from the current Lake City campus on Michigan Avenue, with plans to add an additional 98 to 100 personnel for a total of 185 positions at Meridian at LSHA Hospital, bringing our total staffing to 252 staff in Columbia County. These are folks that will be on shift 24/7, that will eat in our, in our community, will eat in our county, will shop in our county, and it's all levels of jobs from our minimum at $16 an hour to physicians and nurses and everybody in between. We also have a partnership with the local college where we our training program. And we can be a greater training program if we were in the hospital to work with the college to train nurses and techs. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have, and then I would like, if it's so agreeable, because they did come out, I would love to give our board members an opportunity to speak if they so choose.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to hear from the 4 board members first before I have some questions, Mr. Savoy. I don't know how the others feel.
I agree with you. I agree with you if we would, and then we could direct all of our questions. If they have any comments, I'd like to hear them or anything prepared.
And if the board members could also tell us their background too and
Yes,
in their introduction.
thank you, Don. Please introduce yourself and your position.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Feller. I'm the CEO of Well Florida Council, which is one of the state's 11 local health councils for a private nonprofit group. My organization, also a voluntary nonprofit, coordinates Healthy Start services, a variety of HIV/AIDS services, some other healthcare services in the region. We do a lot of consulting and research work on needs assessments and things like that. In fact, some years ago, we worked doing some needs assessments for the hospital authority many, many years ago. I don't really have anything prepared to say. Most of what I'm going to say now is going to come from emotions. First, I understand the fear and concern that residents have. These fears and concerns are natural. Mental health has had a stigma around it forever, but there are also some other fears and concerns that we couldn't hear voiced today. There are mothers, fathers, daughters, neighbors. They have fears and concerns because they're racked with substance abuse. They're succumbing to mental illness. They can't be here today to speak. So as loud as these voices are and valid their concerns are, there's a whole population of folks who can't articulate their voice because of the issues that we're trying to address with that hospital. So that's the one point I really wanted to make. And I did want to share with you a quick story. Maybe it's, hopefully it has some insight to it. I don't know if it does, but I was recently doing some research in Mississippi, of all places. They were trying to pass Medicaid expansion this past legislative session, and they almost got it. Can you believe it? Mississippi,
Cannot.
yeah, the House passed it, the Senate didn't, but the Speaker of the House, a very dyed-in-the-wool Republican, went up in front of his House members, and this is how he passed it in the House. He said, for Medicaid expansion, he said, ladies and gentlemen, regarding Medicaid expansion, come for the economic opportunity and the cost savings to the health system, stay for the salvation. And I'd like to leave you with that. Let's come here for the economic benefits and the cost savings to the health system, but there's a bigger purpose here. Let's stay for the salvation. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Bob Milner. I'm from Bradford County, representative of the Meridian Board. I'm the vice chair right now. My background was 35 years in corrections and law enforcement. I retired as a sheriff of Bradford County in 2008 after 16 years as sheriff. My first 10 was with the Department of Corrections at Rayford and then throughout the state as an inspector. And in between, I was with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in Jacksonville. And after I retired as sheriff and helped start an insurance company out of Tallahassee for 8 years, I should have listened to advice from Dale Williams, but I didn't. And I became city manager for the city of Starkville for 3 years. But I was once chairman of the Regional Planning Council many years ago. Had the opportunity to work with Mr. Glenn. Hadn't seen him in 20 years. Good to see you, sir. As well as Mr. Williams. I think Don, I don't want to be redundant, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Don is very articulately described tonight in response to some of the understandable negative comments about Meridian in general, but more specifically about the clients that we serve. Excuse me, my experience with 35 years of full-time and about 15 more part-time. Matter of fact, March, I celebrated my 50th year as a law enforcement and correctional officer. Those folks are in your community. They're here now. And a whole lot more are gonna come because you're growing. I'm glad you are. I love Columbia County and Lake City. I know a lot of people that were served by this hospital. 2 sheriffs were born here on the same day, August of 1953. Didn't know it then, of course. Sheriff Jerry Whitehead in Union County and Tom Trammell of Columbia County. Didn't get to know each other until they were sheriffs in 1984, but they were both born right here at this hospital. You know, the description of the man that I heard the lady say, and this is in no way negative to anybody who made the comments. I'm responding to the comments, as Don said, about the gentleman who had the knife and or some type of cutter. Believe it or not, Chief, you can argue with me if you want. I didn't hear a crime. Because unless he's a convicted felon, he can carry that knife. I'm not suggesting he should. Guess what? Or the cutter. All right. That's what the police department, if they got called by the dispatch and they did respond and they take him out to the extent that they can, there's no criminal warrants on him and so forth. There's nothing they can do. Am I right, Chief? Okay. My point is that guy also might be a veteran who's suffering PTSD or Agent Orange from Vietnam or a myriad of other things that we don't know. We don't know. And it's good that the lady brought it up. I like her awareness. I teach firearms for a living still, have for 40 years, and I have a company now that we specialize in teaching firearm safety to people. And I like the awareness level. But what I heard was a heightened fear level by several people here who, unfortunately, there's no validity to their beliefs. They have a right to believe what they want. They absolutely have a right to believe what they want. And all the calls that Chief Butler mentioned, very true. I know all about that. My deputies responded every day to people who were experiencing some form of manifestation of mental health or drug abuse. Matter of fact, in Bradford County, Meridian is located right behind the jail and the sheriff's office. There's no fences, there's no towers, there's no security guards. We never had any problem. What I would ask you to remember is this. Those 400 and something calls the chief said they responded to in 2023, they were going to respond to those calls anyway. The question is, do they respond in a semi-controlled environment on Michigan Street or subsequently here? Or do they respond to the Dollar General, to your house where somebody, whether there just happens to be a patient or a client of Meridian or not, but who's experiencing mental health and or drug issues, they're going to happen in your community. Much better to happen at Meridian for the chief and them to have to make the run out there. So the point I want to make is that not only do people who are experiencing mental health issues, and they're in every one of our families, I had 5 brothers. One of them died 3 years ago, much younger than me. And when people say, what did Tony die from? I said, bad choices. And he was a veteran that never got the help that he needed. I get emotional about that. He was a veteran that went to the VA and he never got the help that he needed. You've got people in your community now, and you're going to have a whole lot more who deserve not to be on the streets, causing alarm to citizens, even if it's not a valid alarm. Still, the people deserve treatment. It can be your family or anybody else's. And if Meridian is able to work out the agreement with Lakeshore Hospital, this will be a professional medical mental health facility, not a jail, not a prison. We're not going to have all kind of things going on out in the parking lots and things that people talk about. Those people, whether they're here or not, they're already in your downtown areas. I know you don't want them to be. So whether they're panhandling, sleeping on the streets, or whatever else, which for the most part is not against the law, Governor DeSantis and they were trying to outlaw it. Of course, that's already in appeals. I say, let's treat those folks, get them off the street, get them out of your families and other people's houses where you call the sheriff and the chief every day and say, I do know not to do, I don't know what to do. Y'all come get it, take it. That's our goal. We want to treat them, give them the service they deserve and get them on a path, a continual path, sustainable path, so they are not a problem to society whatsoever. We believe that you will be proud of the kind of facility that Meridian will place in Lake City if you decide to go through with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Stuart Wagoner. I'm a resident of Gainesville, Alachua County. As Ron pointed out, I'm a relatively new board member. I actually have been on the staff of Alachua County for the Department of Court Services, and have monitored some of the funding that Alachua County has given to Meridian to run programs, including the forensic treatment program. I've been a board member just for about a year. I came to Gainesville and Alachua from Chicago and Cook County about 30 years ago. Was heavily involved with criminal justice and mental health, largely from the nonprofit sector and philanthropy. I've found Meridian to be a pretty remarkable nonprofit, facing and responding to a critical need in a 13 county area, of which Columbia County is the second largest in terms of population that Meridian serves, I believe. I think that though families in this country, probably 1 in 5 these days, have a member that faces a mental health condition. And when it's an individual, it affects everybody in the family. And so I think Meridian has been a remarkable player in Alachua County and North Central Florida to respond to services needed from a family standpoint. The issue for me is, and I'm very sensitive to the issues that have been raised here about not in my backyard. Folks have issues. We've got a great downtown. We want to build it. We want to grow it. The issue is people need to have access to services, and it's making those services accessible, convenient to families that live in this county and around it, that I think is really critically needed. There's a wide range of services that Meridian provides, and having a focal point within Lake City is really critical, because you all are growing. Every time I'm coming up here, I see growth happening, and not just by the interstate. So being able to respond to folks in need, visible, accessible services, I think is really vital as you build and grow. It's an issue that's not going away. And the important thing is to have a key player in North Central Florida that is really doing the right thing, I think, in responding to community needs. And I'll leave it at that. I would urge you to consider carefully some of the eloquent statesmen and stateswomen who have already spoken on behalf of this cause, who have been cracking this nut far longer than I have in my bailiwick. But thank you for listening to us, and we appreciate all of your time. Thanks.
Anyone else, Mr. Savoy?
I think we're good.
So, Mr. Kennedy, I think we've got all of them. I know you had some questions. I've got a handful myself.
Yes. To Mr. Savoy, please, if he'll. Mr. Savoy, I appreciate you being here tonight, and I appreciate you talking to the Lake City Reporter a week ago and clarifying, debunking, whatever term we can use, the issues regarding the 12-foot fence with razor wire, which came out of my mouth, at the last meeting, and the only reason why that was stated is because of the fear that was being distributed within the community regarding the Department of Corrections having inmates brought over here. And I think that we all know that Department of Corrections, and through your words tonight, you've assured us the DOC will not bring inmates over here. They will not be treated at this facility. And of course, common sense would tell me that even if they did, if I was a member of your board, I would want to make sure that that contract spelled out that there would be heavily guarded, because you and I both know that if anybody escaped from that facility under the sentence of the court and harmed anybody, the state of Florida would be paying millions and millions of dollars. But enough said on that. That came out of my mouth. I apologize. I should not have said that. I appreciate the Lake City Reporter getting with you and doing that interview. But if you don't mind, for a simple-minded person like myself, will you please try to, on very elementary level, tell me how I can become a patient of the Lakeshore Hospital Meridian Psychiatric Unit? Kind of walk me through what I would have to qualify to do to become a patient.
Well, gladly.
Because I may be willing to go right now.
I hope not, but we're here for you. And we've been in this community for 50+ years. You know, we talked about the hospital being an inpatient facility. And the first thing we do is move our existing crisis support emergency from where it is on Michigan Avenue to the hospital building.
And how many might that be?
Staff wise?
The staff, I'm talking about the patients.
So on any given day, we serve about between 9 and 11 folks through a crisis support emergency. They're largely brought in based on Baker Act. And just to clear the record, most Baker Acts, most all Baker Acts are not initiated by Meridian or our staff. They're initiated by law enforcement, physicians, and other folks in the community that see someone in a crisis.
Family members.
Right, where they're and first choice is voluntary. The Baker Act or Marchman Act is when involuntary placement or evaluation is needed. It can be up to 72 hours. So that crisis support emergency is what we call crisis stabilization. Someone's evaluated. If they don't exhibit the signs to be held in an involuntary statute, we are legally bound to release that person. But again, we are the receiving facility to provide evaluation and treatment for those folks. Law enforcement and EMS and individuals will continue to Baker Act folks as they have. But are we bringing them to a place that is most appropriate? Are we bringing them to a place that has the space that's needed? I'll be honest with you right now, the facility that we're in is too small. The county has grown from the 30 years that we've been there, and it's too small. So to answer your question, you come in on a Baker Act, meet criteria, at which point you go up to a secure psychiatric floor where treatment could be on average 3.5 to 5 days, could be as much as 2 weeks. We could hold you longer if it's an involuntary placement where we go to the courts to have you committed to a state hospital. We are not a state hospital. So that's one way. The other one is you come in voluntarily, and again, you're in such a crisis that you need those services. And that's on the mental health side. On the addiction side, we see people come in all the time that are largely addicted to alcohol. They've been using alcohol, abusing alcohol for dozens of years. The way it's described to me by a physician is at some point your brain chemistry changes. We run on water, but at some point the body turns to where it runs on alcohol. That's why alcohol detox can kill you. Addictions to certain opiates and other things, they won't kill you. They'll make you feel real bad for a period of time while you're detoxing. You can die based on some addiction, including alcohol. At that point, you go into what's called an addictions receiving facility. It does not exist here in the community. Right now, if we find someone meets that criteria, we have to transport them internally down to Gainesville. where we have a 12-bed addictions receiving facility. I can also tell you that the prevalence of addiction versus mental health in Columbia County and surrounding areas is higher than it is in some of our lower tier counties. Physically, Alachua, Levy, and some of the others. The need is growing here. We see it in the numbers. It's the reason why we're here. At that point, you go up to the addictions receiving facility 3 to 5 days, and then be immediately transferred to a residential facility. If you meet that criteria and that need, could be in Gainesville, could be here. We will continue to operate our adolescent residential facility, one of the few in the state, out of our Michigan Avenue campus that is not coming over here. And since several of you have been on a tour of our Lake City campus, proud to say we opened a 16-bed residential facility that we used to use for administrative services. That's 16 folks from your community that could not live independently. Largely, they're in their 40s and 50s, and their parents are starting to pass on, and there's no one to care for them. We saw the need, we opened that facility. So that's how the process would work here at the hospital. Again, we're very sensitive to law enforcement. It's not going to be reduced, but the real question is, do we offer these people jail? Or do we offer these people treatment? When what they did is in relation to a mental health need that if treated, they can be our best friends and our neighbors. And there's no reason to be. Yes. I'll stop there, but please let me know if I haven't answered it.
Yeah, no, you did, and I appreciate it. And I think when I met with you personally over a year ago, year and a half now, I guess, you had assured me that, or had informed me that some of the patients in this facility may be there up to 6, 7, 8 months.
So the only time you'll see that is if there's a backlog for someone waiting for state hospital.
Okay.
They will be on the psychiatric floor. We will manage their medication and we'll do everything we need for that person. I will tell you, typically it's only been since COVID that the length of wait has been that long, but I wanted to be really clear with you about that. Anyone who's there for that length of time is committed there by a judge through a Baker Act, a BA 32, not a BA 52, which is an evaluation.
Yes, sir.
And I will tell you, what we've seen since COVID is there's been a lot of enhancements in medication and other things. We've been able to stabilize people and divert them from the state hospital and get them stable and back into the community long term. There's now long-term acting injectables that can be in the system for a month, for 3 months, now even 6 months. 3 months is called Invega Sustain. We also, for the indigent care, do prescription PAP, which is prescription assistance, and IDP, Indigent Drug Program. So we have the ability to fund these medications as well, which is a major concern for the indigent care that we serve. Again, we've been here for 50 years. The community is growing, Meridian needs to grow along with it.
And I'm about to wrap it up, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
And I think also when we met, my concerns were along the lines as far as with law enforcement. And that was, I think you had assured me that a lot of these people, not your patients, would not only come from this community, but maybe 2 or 3 of the other surrounding communities which Meridian serves. Am I correct?
That is correct, but they're coming to our facility now on Michigan Avenue. There's no change.
Okay. And I think my concern is, are we just going to open the door and let them walk out the front door? And you assured me that no, that they would be taken back to where their home is. Am I correct?
They are brought back to their home. They are stabilized. And they are followed up on with care coordinators, case managers, counselors, physicians, and others.
And then the other main concern that I had along the lines of as far as law enforcement was the visitation. What was your procedures as far as having visitors? Were they screened? Were they do any background checks on these visitors? Were they allowed to come daily, hourly? And I think you had assured me that there would be rules in place as far as visitation days, visitation hours. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Okay.
And no, we don't do background screens on visitors, and there are set times that they can come. They're typically never left alone with the patients that we serve. That could the potential of passing drugs and other things. It's a managed situation for those sorts of.
Okay. And
But I will just say, I think it's very critical that family plays a role. and keeping folks in the community and coordinating them with their family. Remember, you got a lot of families that have, they've had it, these folks. They have dealt with their family members and outbursts and, you know, other things for years. Well, we work to reunify the family, but part of that is working with family on education, what to expect, what are the signs, when to engage us in treatment. What can you do to continue to keep this person stable and de-escalated? Make sure they get their medications, all the things that go along with that. Guys, we don't do it alone. We do it with all our community partners, but the family is one of the most critical components. Sorry, I could go on.
No,
apologize.
and then I appreciate your board members coming here tonight, listening to them and, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I read too much on the internet. I know my doctor tells me I read Dr. Webb too much, but, Sheriff, I appreciate your comments and I agree PTSD is a serious, problem in our society. And those people have done a lot for this country and they deserve a lot. But would you also agree that, homelessness is a form of a mental health illness?
I would say that a large percentage of homeless have a mental health issue and possibly an addictions issue that needs addressing. In order to address their homelessness, you must address their mental illness. And some of the things we've done in LSHA County and other counties are teams that are out in the community, working with these folks, engaging with these folks. We have a program right now called TIA. It used to be called GABI. It's homelessness program where we have case managers in the community working with folks. I would love to be part of a diversion team here in Columbia County that's going to make a difference. We've done that as the gentleman, our board member from Alachua County, said he worked with our forensic program and others. Our homeless programs, they help treat the fear that keeps folks in the woods. If you can get them to a place where they're mentally stable, they see the world with a different set of eyes. They become our friends, our partners, not those people, because those people are us only by the grace of God.
Thank you, Mr. Spore, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time.
I want to pause one moment, Don. We've got to switch tapes for the recording. You could stay there, just for, yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
They know how to use
Good, man. How are you? You see, I see you got a.
basil salad, and they told me to take it off as to take the stitches out tomorrow. And normally I keep it covered.
That's all right. I've got some scars. I understand.
It's a little thing that I could barely see. And I said, "Give me money's worth."
Dermatologist saw it, though, didn't they?
Yeah, I go all the way down.
Don knows a lot about that too.
Went to the dermatologist before I moved here on our ways. Something about the cloud of the sun.
Yeah.
Paradise has.
Yeah. Gotta have a few of them removed.
Takes us over to school up to the
Back to the 80s.
close, that's a CD, but it's only got right at 45 minutes quality audio on it. So once it gets to the end, yeah, once it gets to the end, it's the end.
Station.
Okay, all right, we're hot. We'll bring the meeting back to order. Mr. Beal, you said you had a question?
I do, and I appreciate Mr. Kennedy's. He asked some of the clarifying questions that I was planning on asking. And really I have more of a statement than anything, and I've kind of put it down on my phone so I wouldn't forget. And first want to say thank you to everybody that is here tonight, because it shows concern and pride in the community. And I certainly appreciate that. But I also believe that allowing Meridian to occupy the Lakeshore Hospital building is a positive development for not only mental health services in Lake City and the surrounding area. It's also a positive economic development for Lake City and Columbia County. Meridian has committed to spending at least $10 million on renovating the old hospital building. And that could very well help to increase some of the property values in the immediate area. It'll place the building back on the tax rolls, adding to the city and the county's budgets. Meridian plans to hire at least 80 new full-time employees and employ a total of 185 employees at the downtown hospital campus. These individuals will likely live, eat, and seek entertainment in the downtown area. Meridian has committed to not providing outpatient services at this campus because they listened to the community over 2 years ago when we had multiple meetings on this. And they want to be a partner in the community, just like they've partnered with Florida Gateway College. In a March 20th, 2024 press release, Governor Ron DeSantis announced the signing of HB 1365 to keep Florida streets safe. And it stated, this legislation requires counties to ensure that homeless individuals receive the mental health and drug addiction services they need while residing in a designated location off our public streets, prioritizing public safety. Under HB 1365, homeless individuals are prohibited from camping on city streets, sidewalks, and parks, and instead placed in temporary shelters monitored by law enforcement agencies. My understanding is the city and the county is responsible for providing that shelter. The state of Florida has the enforcement tools needed to ensure local governments comply. Homeless shelters will require occupants to not use drugs. These shelters will also include substance abuse and mental health treatments. There was a recent Supreme Court decision in the city of Grants Pass versus Johnson, which is relevant to Florida HB 1365 as it empowers municipalities to regulate camping on public property. This reinforces the need for alternative solutions, such as increased access to mental health services to address the root cause of homelessness. Last month, the U.S. Surgeon General wrote an op-ed in the New York Times calling on Congress to issue a warning label for social media users to combat what he called an emergency mental health crisis among the nation's youth. A quote from his op-ed reads, "It's time to require a Surgeon General's warning label on social media platforms stating that social media is associated with significant mental health harms for adolescents." The American Psychological Association says teenagers spend nearly 5 hours every day on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. The mental health impacts are hard to ignore. A 2019 APA study found that the proportion of young adults with suicidal thoughts or other suicide-related outcomes increased 47% from 2008 to 2017, just as social media use began to climb. These are two examples, and only two examples, of why mental health services are needed now and will only be needed further in the future. Meridian is committed to being a partner in Lake City. If this was any other industry, this would be celebrated and welcomed. In fact, the city or the county would likely offer incentives to any other business creating this many jobs at one time. I've visited Meridian's campus in Gainesville, and I would encourage anyone who is concerned about this campus to do the same. It is clean, it's quiet. As Mr. Savoy stated, there's a public park and a dog park. Maybe we can get a dog park in downtown Lake City. That would be fantastic. Literally right next door. I believe you, Mr. Chairman, said you visited multiple times and had no idea that it was Meridian's campus. The Gainesville campus offers outpatient services while the Lakeshore campus will not. And even with them offering those outpatient services, still a very clean, quiet neighborhood. I'm confident that any visitors to downtown Lake City would not realize that Lakeshore is a mental health hospital, but see it as a healthcare hospital, just as it was for many years. There will be no barbed wire. There will be no indication that it is. And I've heard no fact-based evidence that Meridian at Lakeshore would attract more drug users or pedophiles to walk by and prey on any youth at the nearby park. I also think because of some of the stories that we heard tonight from the public, it just reinforces the idea that these services are needed.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Bill.
thank you.
Ms. Chancey, do you have any?
Oh,
Question?
yeah. When somebody walks into your facility for treatment, how do you know what's wrong with them?
First thing we do is a biopsychosocial evaluation, crisis evaluation. It's done by a master's or licensed clinician, and it's signed off on by a physician.
And that's when you determine what their problem is, correct?
We begin the diagnosis process at that point.
So you have no idea what it is when they walk in. You
So
said they're,
you're a nurse, if I walk into Lake City Medical Center and I say I have a stomach ache, you have really, or a headache, you have really no idea until you do an evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment. I would argue it is the exact same issue.
exactly. So you have no idea whether they are pedophiles or
No, just like Ms. Jansen.
okay.
I'd like to finish. Just as if they walked in, you as a nurse, and they had a broken arm and they were a pedophile, you'd have no idea, but regardless, you'd still treat that person.
I'm
We
not
would treat
saying-
that person for a psychiatric crisis or an addictions issue, no different than you or someone else would if they walked.
I'm
into
not saying you
emergency.
wouldn't treat them. I am saying that it is possible you would be treating a pedophile. You said you were addressing me when you said you don't treat pedophiles. You don't know. And
don't-
I think that's accurate.
I think it is as accurate as someone that walked into a 7-Eleven and was pedophile or walked into a.
Correct. Correct.
If
But
there is that issue and we know about it, we would treat their mental illness, but we would refer them to another facility, another unrelated facility, for whatever issue they have.
fine.
And that could be sexual abuse as well. What
Sure.
we do treat is folks that, children and adults that are victims of pedophilia. And I think that's fair and appropriate.
Okay. Now, I would like to congratulate you on working with the police in situations where necessary. But I think also we have to acknowledge that at times the two can't coordinate their timeframes. So it isn't as though every call can be assisted. Okay. Now, in other areas, land values do go down when a psychiatric facility is placed near them.
You'd have to show me that, in a study that is backed up. Because as I've provided for you, I've provided studies that crime goes down and values go up, and we bring more professionals to the community.
Okay.
You'd have to base that in fact.
Now, the other thing is when you say that they would be in a secure facility, can you explain that?
Sure, if they were, once they're admitted to our crisis support emergency, it is a set of double locked one-way doors. And we do wand and check for, dangerous weapons or any type of weapons before someone enters our facility. That's everyone in those facilities. We're actually in the process of installing, metal detectors right now in our crisis facilities, which we've not had. I've been at Meridian since 2011. I think we disarmed one person that I can.
But you would have a lockdown facility.
Yes, and it would be double doors and it would be secured. There are times that someone is so violent that even the team that's well-trained, the code team that's well-trained, needs additional support. And we do on occasion call law enforcement for that once someone is been struck to a point or can't be managed. We also have lock seclusion rooms when someone is of that nature. But I will tell you, we have to report that PCF. We have to monitor for that. And it is done under state law, or state statute 394 and 397. And there's very specific protocols. We also are an accredited, nationally accredited facility. all of Meridian is a nationally accredited facility through CARF. And we receive about 65 to 70 clinical quality audits and financial audits every single year for the number of grants and services that we bring to the communities we serve.
Okay, let me say, I greatly appreciate what Meridian does. And I know that mental health is a real problem. You spoke at the veterans. I have a cousin that was a tunnel. I know about it. My house is the only house he will visit. Okay? My son has his PhD in psychology. I understand, even though you think I don't. I just do not agree with putting your facility in the middle of Lake City. That's my only disagreement. Well, that is not my only disagreement. Plus the fact that that's a taxpayer facility right now. Taxpayers paid for all that. I don't believe in giving something away that the taxpayers paid for. Okay? I believe in what you're doing. That is not the problem. Okay?
Anything else, Ms. Chance?
Not at the moment.
I have a handful of comments too. Mr. Savoy will remember, when he first came here, I think I approached you near the back of the auditorium and said, good idea, not here. And he said, go do a tour. And when I went to go do the tour, I said, oh, I know where we are. I used to live by here and this is where I took my dog. And I didn't know that that's what the place was. I took the tour. Lauren took me on the tour because you weren't available. Two things that I noticed that struck me. One, no fences. 0. 2, nobody wandering around in a clean facility. How about the third one? You regale me on I don't care which one of you talks about it, but it was, you can tell me the program. There was almost like an outpatient service where folks were driving up, getting out of their car, going in, picking up their medication and leaving. My tour included walking through the doors that they were going through and going into the facility. Never once did when I tell you guys I was in your tank, in your camp, I was in your camp. I was going there to prove them wrong. I'm sorry, it's not there. The fear was not there. I couldn't see it. What I did see while I was walking through the rear of that facility was a intervention program that kept mothers with newly born children. That one was tough to walk off. That's what really got me over the edge. They were keeping families back together. And that's not something that I took lightly at all. While I appreciate the fear, it is, in my opinion, to my core unfounded. It really is. You can't see it. I didn't know it was there. I was there for 2 years. I didn't know the facility was next door. That's all I can say. That's the only reason that I am not right back there high-fiving you guys saying, yeah, let's shut this down right now. I was there. I didn't know it was there. And that's the same level of facility that you're bringing here. Am I incorrect in that statement?
You are correct, except for the outpatient. And it sounds like you did go through our medication assisted treatment program.
Yes.
Which will stay over on Michigan Avenue at the request of the trustees.
Yeah. So
And honestly, it's the right place to keep it.
Yeah. Well, when I tell you guys, I walked in and amongst the patients, I'm telling you, I was in the other camp, but I told him when I left, I said, okay, I get it. So those are my comments. On this new business, we've got the status of the agreement. Mr. Williams, if you'll bring us up to date. Thank you, Mr. Savoy, unless anyone has any further questions.
Thank you for your time, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks to our board members who came out of their own course tonight.
Thank you.
We're a team.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, I'll defer to Todd related to.
Okay. Mr. Kennedy.
We have the same draft ready to go. probably need to go over it again, with their attorneys to make sure that everything is still kosher and appropriate. Haven't spent any time on reviewing it until we got these other issues resolved. But it's, I think, pretty much ready to go. Just need probably a conference or two with Mr. Savoy and his attorneys and make sure that we don't have any changes, modifications that we need, and I think we'd be good to go at that point.
Okay. Any wishes of the board?
I mean, later on tonight, we're talking about one of the things that's,
That's
Tell
part of
this
that,
up.
to that agreement, yes.
so, I mean, I would think, Ken, from what you're saying, within the next couple of meetings before, certainly before the end of 2024, we should have this presented to the board.
That would be my hope, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple comments and I'd like probably need to direct these to the chief if he would mind coming to the podium just for a second. Mr. Williams, help me out. About a year and a half ago, did we not do public records requests to the Lake City Police Department, Columbia County Sheriff's Office, the Gainesville Police Department, and the Alachua County Sheriff's Office for both of the facilities here in Lake City and in Gainesville? We requested, I don't remember what years, it may have been the same one that the chief did, but Chief, I appreciate these results here, but you didn't actually go into detail on the calls. And I think when I looked at the records that we got from your agency 18 months ago, I don't remember, again, I apologize for the not knowing the years, but they all appeared to be kind of minor calls. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit as to these calls? I mean, it looks like you're overwhelmed and inundated. And I know it's during probably a 24-hour period that your officers get called there, but could you maybe tell us what nature of the calls they would be?
There's a variety. Some could be runaways from the facility, juvenile runaways, you'll handle those.
Yes, sir.
Battery or assaults on either between patients or staff members.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes it's the individual is out of control, they won't take the medication.
Or it could be even a delivery of a Baker Act patient.
Well, the Baker Acts, a lot of times we go back, it's when patients from other counties are
Yes, sir.
brought in.
Yes, sir.
Because if they come from Baker County and they call, Baker County, number one's not gonna come back. And even so, they're not gonna wait that long. We respond out. So there's a variety of things, and most of the time we do go out there because somebody is experiencing an issue that the staff can't handle. And there's multiple units that respond, either 2 patrol units and a supervisor. We're never there where the facility's out of control. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
I'm just saying the volume of calls that we respond out to.
Yes, sir.
Yes, they are our neighbors. The ones from other counties are not ones that we would normally deal with. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, they come ready to go shopping, so we might deal with them when they have a problem.
Right.
I'm not saying that, I'm just letting you know the volume of calls we have. If the facility brings in more people, I would assume that we would have the same amount of increase based on percentage.
Right.
Whether the facility is more secure. Now, the main reason I came up here was I was hearing a lot of different things
Yes, sir.
that your plan for what Meridian was gonna do was morphing into something other than I was initially led to believe.
Right. And
I'm
I think that you and I had talked 18 months ago because I wanted to get your feedback
correct.
and how important that was to me and this community as far as law enforcement,
And-
as well as talking to the sheriff, which I did.
One of the reasons when I started, I did start off with the mental health in rural areas,
Yes, sir.
the areas that we need and the need for that in Lake City.
Yes, sir.
And trust me, I'd much rather have Meridian deal with somebody than my officers have to deal with somebody.
Right.
That way nobody gets hurt and they get the help they need, because eventually they still need to get that help.
Yes,
So
sir.
whether they go through law enforcement courts and then they get the help, or they get the help directly from Meridian. And again, I deal with Meridian staff all the time. We meet if there's a problem, we get together. I haven't had an issue with Meridian, we haven't been able to iron out Usually it's a miscommunication. We straighten that out and move on. So I have no problem with Meridian. Again, I believe they're an asset to the community. I was just very concerned about what I was hearing, that this project was morphing into something more than I initially was made aware of, but
From your experience here as the chief of police of Lake City, and also we have the former sheriff from Bradford County? Yes. What, just during a month, what would you say your officers, are, because a lot of the Baker Acts are law enforcement initiated, correct?
most of them are.
Most of them are.
We're
So-
doing that transport.
So what would you just say off the top of your head during a 30-day period that your officers are transporting individuals to Meridian at the current site for Baker Act situation?
I'd be hard pressed to give you an answer. A lot of it has.
Ballpark?
Time of year, around holidays,
Just
couple times. few
full
times a
moon,
week,
maybe?
A few times a week. That's just for Lake City. I don't know what Columbia County's doing.
Okay.
I don't know what the other counties are doing, but just Lake City Police Department a few times a week.
And then on your map here, you also had showed the distances of the individual areas, but just so that I know, because I do, what is the distance of the Lake City Police Department from this hospital facility over
Probably
here?
just under a half mile at the most.
Thank you, sir, very much for your time being here. And also the new city manager, I noticed him back there. I appreciate him being here tonight too.
That was the city.
We got, yeah, he got demoted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, you got to keep up.
Assistant city manager.
Around John too much. You got to keep up what's going on.
Okay, I think we've exhausted that point.
Yes,
Okay.
I apologize.
Oh, no, I'm just making sure nobody's got anything else to add or any other business to attend to before I move on to the next one.
I know you're sleepy, but
I'm trying, I'm hanging in there, y'all, I'm telling you. Okay, let's move on to the next one, the 2024-2025 budget. And Dale, I'm gonna let you ride shotgun on this.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, trustees, it's that time of year again. You are required as an independent special district to
Thank you, sir.
meet certain procedures for the adoption of your budget.
Yes, sir.
You do have the right to levy a millage under law. For the past 3 years, you have levied a millage rate of 1/10,000th of 1 mil. That would be 0.0001. Countywide, it generates about $600. And just to remind the trustees, a decision was made several years ago to levy a millage, but it's more of a placeholder on the tax bill than it is a revenue generator. Now, whatever millage you determine tonight to be your maximum millage rate is certified to the property appraiser on a form called a DR 420. That's just a Department of Revenue form that was propagated for that purpose. And while that is technically statutorily due in August, the property appraiser is requesting that we submit all DR 420s by the end of the month. So that's why we have it on this agenda. But once you certify the maximum millage, when you get to a hearing, you can reduce that millage, but you cannot increase that millage. And of course, those have been the same rules and guidelines that have applied since we started this process. But I do need to ask that initially you establish your maximum millage rate. Again, whatever this is, the rate you decide will be certified to the property appraiser. This is the rate that the taxpayers will see on their tax form, on their trim notice, the truth and millage notice. It'll have Lakeshore Hospital Authority, and it'll have whatever taxes are levied based on that millage and their property value. So this is what they will see. And then, of course, after that, we'll establish the dates of the public hearings.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Before we get going, I want to open it up for public comment because I broke rank and did that. Does anyone have any public comments about this item before we get going on?
I just have a question. I think I'll certainly speak on this.
Yeah, Mr. Warren, go ahead.
I'm just curious as it relates to the millage rate. And if this board decides to do what Dale is proposing, I was wondering, how would that affect the referendum that is coming up? And whether or not that would be an issue that would forego or preclude this tax levying situation that we may or may not vote on or pass tonight. That's in Dale's voice, I'm just bullshit. But I can mimic Dale pretty good. So I wanna know seriously, why are we having this discussion when you're getting ready to have another discussion that a meeting is gonna take place potentially, if y'all agree on it, that happens somewhere in the dark room, that they're gonna put it on the agenda for a referendum issue, whether or not this is gonna be a taxing authority or not. So I'm like, I like you guys, but y'all seem to be getting to be worse than the city council at times. I swear.
Oh, man.
I swear, I know you guys and, some of you guys I like and some of you guys I don't like, you know what I mean? And y'all cause that over time, but it makes no sense. You saying let's do a millage rate, then down here, the next thing we're gonna have a discussion on is referendum. So I'm just lost. I guess I'll wait until the referendum issue come up and find out how this joint meeting came about, because I don't remember the board asking anybody to set up a meeting unless I was asleep. Don't remember. If it happened, just tell me. I do go to sleep. I don't really be up 24 hours. I'm not in the streets anymore, so I don't have a reason to stay up that late anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Ms. Beal.
I believe even if the referendum were to happen, the representative and the state senator would have to bring it up before the legislature. It would be 2025 before it was dissolved. So this would, the millage rate would still happen. And I'm sure Dale will go into detail, but I did want to just answer Mr. Warren's question. My understanding is the county commission requested us to have this meeting at their last meeting. Not that we wanted it.
That's not, I was at the meeting and I appreciate you straightening out. But Brent, I agree with you. It's gotta go through the legislative process. So I agree with you on that. But it just didn't make any sense to me why we're having it coming up, but y'all are in charge, and so I respect that. And I thank you for the update, but you're right, it won't happen until about another year.
I'm not in favor.
Yeah, I know you're not. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
In my mind, that clears it up.
me.
It's procedural in case it doesn't, in case anything happens. So.
Would also like to make a motion that we set the maximum millage rate at 1/10,000th of a mill as it has been the last 3 or 4 years, 0.0001. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, before I second that, were there any other public comments besides Mr. Warren's?
I didn't think, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
My apologies.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't think it was an intriguing question.
I'd like to ask Mr. Williams, I know I don't know how much money is left in the hospital authority, but I would think it's millions, I'm sure.
Yes.
But originally you thought, and why couldn't that money be used to build something or go someplace that services the population that we all know exists in Lake City? But if originally you wanted to raise the place and now you're going to go ahead probably, unless the public can stop it, will any of the board members, will your organization, North Florida Professionals, be able to benefit off of engineering studies and things that the company that's coming in here, Meridian, or how much is, you're gonna benefit, any of you? It just seems a little not transparent, and like you said, like Sylvester said, it's beginning to look like city council, because you don't really know what's going on with the back door deals and the under the table stuff. And I just want to say, we'll be watching if Meridian does come into this facility, just how much people benefit, you know, with multiple streams of income off of this at the public's expense, and how much will my taxes go up if I live here, you know, across this the lake from Meridian? Will it go up $100? Will it go up, you know, going up? How much of Meridian, how is Meridian gonna pay for all of this? And why are, like Ms. Chansey said, why are we giving the property away to them when it's prime real estate property in the middle of town? Those are just some questions. I don't know whether you can answer them now, but I think the public should be, it should be transparent, and we should all know exactly what's going on and how they're gonna change this place that you thought was not in very good shape and should be raised, and now they're gonna come in and have this great facility. So are they paying for all of this, or are the taxpayers continuing to pay for all of this? Or are you using the funds in the hospital's authority for this? Or are you guys just want to pass the hot potato on to somebody else, and Lake City taxpayers seems like a good choice? I don't know. I don't want to accuse anybody of anything because I really don't know that much, but because I don't know anything about it, I try to keep aware of what's going on, and I'm not a lazy person, but there's so many unanswered questions that I think we need to know more information about this.
Thank you, appreciate it. Dale, if you want to respond to some of those, I can jump on some.
I'll be glad to.
I can say that I personally, when Meridian first came approached here, one of the first things I tried to do was figure out an alternate location for this. And we started throwing numbers around, and I believe the construction budget for a facility similar to this was somewhere around 200 to 300 million. Of which, you know, obviously they can't do, and I think my understanding is correctly, they're not gonna be held to the same stringent standards that a hospital would
Correct.
when they go to retrofit that facility. So that's the reason that facility carries the value it does with Meridian. They can retrofit it. They don't have to build it to the same standard that, for instance, I can't remember their name, Lake City Medical has over there. So they can actually use the facility to its.
We're not paying for any.
Oh, yeah,
that's
we're
one of
not
the
paying
reasons
for
that-
any of the renovations. It's simply a transfer of that asset to them. They are raising all the funds to do the renovations.
With the 30-year
What's the
reverter
value
clause.
of that asset?
That's a great question.
We would still own it. There's a 30-year reverter clause on that. It would be a lease.
Yeah.
Right?
That's my recollection.
Wouldn't the value of it right now be upside down?
Yeah.
Sir?
Wouldn't the value of it right now be upside down unless someone goes in and make it on the tax roll and make it valuable? Right now, it would be upside down. It would be to everybody's benefit to put somebody in it. That is why the community is losing. That's why District 10 is losing. That's why the predominant Black community is losing. That will benefit. I think there's a lot of lay people who, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of lay people who are not informed when it comes down to mental health issues. My mom suffered from mental issues. There's no one has never visited more mental health facilities than my mama. And when it comes to Meridian, and I go and see her all the time. It is a needed thing. I'd rather have my mama 2 blocks from her mama house versus out there somewhere we gotta drive and somebody making go and walk and see her and drive distance. We need to stop with the nonsense. It's not gonna do none of the stuff we said. There's no empirical evidence of this fear being real. Everywhere else is doing it. We're always the last. We say we won't grow, and then here we come with the bull jump and stopping the growth from happening. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. The Dale Williams are gonna die out, and the people my age are gonna outlive them, and progression is gonna happen. So either we're gonna do it today or we're gonna do it.
Appreciate it. But essentially, in terms of them paying for it too, just what we're saying, they're paying, right? They're running for it. Nobody, our taxpayers aren't footing the bill for the renovations of whatever it is they're gonna do. But the building right now, currently, from what my understanding is, from all the RFPs that we sent out, Dale, if you remind me if I'm wrong, we couldn't give it away to another hospital. They would not take it. So Hang on, Ms. Lindley,
Just
this,
one
I wanna,
question.
I understand. We're gonna do one more public comment and then, I think we've beat this one to death. But, one more thing, before you go, what were the taxes? Something like a penny, 3, 4 pennies last year? I can't remember what the
Yeah.
levy is. It's
Probably a couple $100. right?
Well, it generated about $500 a year.
$500 countywide is what we raised last year with the 0.001. And I believe the only reason we're holding the 0.001 is just for a marker in case everything falls flat. There's still, people don't get blindsided by the fact that the authority has the power to tax. That was that. Miss Lindley, I'm gonna do one comment. Would you please approach? And be,
If they're a not-for-profit, they won't increase the tax base, correct?
they'll actually increase the tax base because we'll actually be able to collect taxes on that building for us.
But I don't think they're taxable.
Aren't they? Don't we get them back on the tax rolls?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, never mind. My misunderstanding.
There's a little over 19 million in the Lakeshore Hospital Authority's account. As far as North Florida professional services go, they do not perform any work whatsoever for Meridian. And the fact that I am here part-time and they're full-time pretty much ensures they can't. But you're welcome to keep checking.
Makes you feel any better, I can't bill for them either. So, okay, I think we've exhausted the comments, the board comments. Additional,
I'll second Mr. Beal's motion.
okay.
If Mrs. Markham can recite or Mr. Beal, if you'll restate the motion, I'm
I'd
sorry.
like to set the maximum millage rate at 1/10,000th of a mil, which is 0.000.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to set the millage rate to 1/10,000th of a mil. All those in favor?
What about comments?
Oh, comments. I'm sorry, Miss Chancey, I thought I was pointing this way. Go ahead, Miss Chancey.
I think we need to realize that what is raised is less than we spend a month
Right.
on indigent care. We are providing indigent care, which is one of the things that we're asked to do, okay? But it is less per annual, what we would receive from taxes than we spend in a month. Am I correct, Mr. Williams?
Oh, yeah, considerably less.
We spend approximately 50 to 60,000 a month to keep that thing alive.
No,
She's
no,
talking about
that isn't what I'm
indigent care.
talking about.
Talking about just indigent care.
I was,
Indigent care.
yes. Not including indigent care, just to keep the.
No, she's talking about, we spend more in indigent care in a month than we collect
We take
all
in,
year.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Difference.
Yes.
Not the rest of our facilities.
No, I know. I was trying to diverge that myself. I apologize.
Your lack of sleep is accepted.
It's hurting. It's really hurting.
Can we have a roll call vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, let's do a roll call. We have a motion and a second to do the millage at 1/10,000th of a mil. Ms. Chancey?
No,
No. That's it.
Yes.
Mr. Beal?
Check my calendar. Actually, I've got a better question. If this doesn't pass tonight, how do we fill out Form DR 420, or do we just not do it? And
Well, if it ends up and there's not a confirmed vote of the millage, I'm going to have to ask that you call a special meeting before the end of the month, where we have a full complement of board members in order to break any quorum issues.
yes,
Can we recall? Well, no, I mean, your vote stands, right? So,
I voted yes and it failed. So.
and it fails. So the motion.
do we
fails.
need all three of us to vote the same way?
Yes.
To
Let me vote no. Or yes, or whatever.
Hooray.
What is the correct procedure for that, Mr. Kennan? Can we recall the motion? Or can we call that a yes and that
She can ask for a reconsideration.
She just defeat the purpose, so she can call.
You can make a motion for reconsideration.
I make a motion for reconsideration.
She can be.
So Ms. Chancey has a motion for reconsideration.
Second,
So we will do a roll call again for a motion to reconsider the vote and to re-vote on the 1/10,000ths of the mill budget. I'm sorry, tax, I'm sorry.
Millage rate.
Millage rate, thank you. My brain is hurting. Ms. Chancey.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, we now have to designate 2 dates for public hearings. Obviously, the law requires that we allow the other taxing entities the ability to set their hearings first. You have a calendar which includes those. So we are recommending our regular meeting of September 6th. I'm sorry, 9th for the first hearing. And if it's okay with the trustees, I would recommend September 23rd for the second hearing, which would be a special called budget hearing for you.
can I ask one question? on
please,
that?
please.
Mr. Williams, and Mr. Kennan, in addition to that meeting on the 23rd, will we be permitted to have other agenda items?
If we advertise them as such, in accordance with law, you could have other items. It doesn't have to be exclusive to the budget.
Good. I'll make a motion that we set the dates of September the 9th, 2024 for the first budget hearing and September 23rd, 2 weeks later for the final budget hearing.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to set the first date for the first budget hearing to September 9th and the second at September 23rd.
Roll call vote.
I'm gonna have to do a roll call vote, Ms. Chancey. I know you're
Yes.
staring at your,
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
you're a yes, and
Yes.
all right. Motion passes unanimously. Those are the dates, September 9th and September 23rd. Oh, okay. So we've exhausted that one. All right, next item, the discussion and possible action, special call meeting with Columbia County Board of Commissioners, tentative date, July 15th. The school board administrative complex. Before we open this one up, public comments on this item.
Mr. Chair, thank you for recognizing me. I want to point out to, I think we had a conversation earlier, and you said that the county had on their agenda, they had voted. I was at that meeting. I spoke to the council, the commissioners. They said that they were approached about having a meeting. And that's why they voted to have the meeting. Commissioner Williams, the chair, me and him had a back and forth about it. It was presented to them, according to him, that you all wanted to meet. And they voted yes to meet, and now it seems to be on y'all agenda to vote to meet. But it was presented to them, otherwise they had no reason to know that there would even be a meeting that y'all wanted to meet. So somewhere, someone asked the county for a meeting. They just didn't spring up a meeting from what they told me and from what they voted on. They only voted, they said, if you go back and look at the minutes, I'll go back and look at the YouTube, they only voted because it said that you guys wanted to meet with them. Now, whether one of you all directors, attorneys, or whomever, someone communicated to the county that y'all wanted to meet. So I think that's where some people get off track and they say y'all lack transparency. 9 times out of 10, they blame Dale because Dale serves a lot of masters and he likes to do the puppet artwork in many cases. No offense, if I had your position, I'd probably do the same thing, Dale. It's beneficial to you to consult, part-time consult and make $56,000, $7,000 times 10 plus your retirement. I don't fault you for that. I fault the board and the governor appointed members for not holding you accountable when it comes to certain things, or holding whoever's responsible accountable for such actions. So you mean to tell me that this board did not know or did not ask them to meet? I'm asking this question now, yes. Oh, no.
Okay. All right. is that your comment? Cause I know Dale's,
No.
I just wanna make sure you got it all.
It's a comment, now it's a question. Did this board ask the county to meet? But they saying that y'all asked them to meet, and there's no record of showing that y'all asked them to meet.
Okay, well, sure we can touch on that. We'll respond to the question. Yes, sir. All right. Hang on. I want to get through all my public comments. I'm sorry. Ms. Lemon.
They may have known because I ESP'd them saying we need to do something because this board, since the hospital closed there, it's been an illegitimate board. There's been no position on this board because there's no hospital. I met with, Brandon, Bradley, over their head. When the hospital was actually being, maybe 2 years ago before Kennedy came around, it was in receivership. I pushed for this board to be dissolved. I haven't talked to them recently, but I sent them brain signals that this authority needs to go away.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Are there any additional public comments? Ms. May.
Hey, so I also wanted to understand the transparency of it, because if you read the Lake City Reporter, you can see there's comments made towards what is happening now. And I sent an email on June 25th, which was prior to the county's meeting, inquiring about the status and the way that it looked that the board was shifting or transferring to. So there seems to have been some behind the scenes conversations regarding this board being dismantled or going to the county prior to any meetings happen, which would be violations. And also you have individuals who have a meeting. You've been having individuals trying to set their schedules to come and tour this campus. It's almost like just a pure disrespect to individuals who are taking their time out. I understand that everyone is busy, but I'm probably at this moment, probably one of the most busiest individuals in this room. I've been in the last week to Virginia for a couple of days, Alabama for a couple of days, to Atlanta, just got back and just in time to make this meeting. And we'll be leaving again to go to Chicago, Indiana, and Kentucky. So everyone's busy. But when we make time out to meet, and it seems that our time is being wasted, it's very, very disheartening. And it's very upsetting. And this meeting seems to be pre-planned prior to the commissioners meeting and prior to you all placing this on this agenda, which is very sad, because if the intent is medical services, what does the county do? How is the county going to provide those medical services for the community at need?
Thank you. Mr. Williams, I believe you had a comment. Wait, I've exhausted the public comments. Sorry. Okay, yes.
Comment and explanation. Number one, the reason it's on the agenda is for you to decide whether you wish to meet with the Board of County Commissioners in this special meeting. Now, we did set a tentative date. The reason is in order to meet the schedule that the county commission discussed. Certain deadlines had to be met. Those can obviously be canceled and ended if you choose not to meet. Now, I was specifically asked how this came up. I do not know how or why it was placed on the Board of County Commissioners workshop agenda, but once it was placed on that agenda, I received a call from David Krause advising me that it was on the agenda. And then I also had a conversation with one commissioner. I went to the workshop. They discussed that they were getting requests. I know some of those requests come from people that are here or were here talking about Meridian. They've obviously had some conversations with commissioners because they didn't like the way that proposal was going, I assume. But I'm the one that asked them to consider, assuming you would want to meet with you before they made a final decision. I did not have time to poll you, which I could not poll you. So I went to the public hearing, and I think after the public hearing, I called every one of you to tell you I had been to the public hearing. But I went to the public hearing and I asked them to please set the time frame such that if you wanted to have a joint meeting with them, you could. You may or you may not. That's why it's on the agenda. Pretty simple. Now, from the commentary standpoint, and this is opinion and opinion only, when I was with the county as county manager, we got requests routinely to have a referendum regarding the Lakeshore Hospital Authority. Back when the authority raised the millage and bought the properties in downtown, there was no end to it. We got requests all the time. And even then, there was an operating hospital, and the authority had a management agreement and financial services agreement with them, but yet the public still wanted to have a vote. Now, here's the thing, the Board of County Commissioners cannot dissolve the Lakeshore Hospital Authority. They do not have that authority. What I understand they're wanting to do is to have a referendum, a straw poll, if you would. They want to use what they learned from the straw poll to then petition the legislative delegation to take the necessary steps to dissolve the authority. That would be the process. There are questions galore. You know, I've had other attorneys tell me that the Board of County Commissioners does not have the legal authority to even conduct a referendum because it's outside the scope of their services. I don't know. I'm not in the law end of this. I just know what I hear. But what's on the agenda for you to decide is there a benefit for you to meet with the Board of County Commissioners on the 15th? And they want to discuss exactly what I said, and that is creating through referendum a ballot question.
Fair enough. Mr. Bill.
I don't think there's any reason to meet with the Board of County Commissioners. I personally would be in favor of us sending a letter as the hospital authority to Representative Brannon and Senator Bradley and saying, there's talk about it in Columbia County. Take it before the legislature. If that's what they want to do, that's perfectly fine with me. We can take the money that is in here and put it into some sort of trust account that can only be used on indigent care. There was one comment that I read in the Lake City Reporter that the county attorney had mentioned something about an interlocal agreement, saying what we could and couldn't do with the assets if that was the case. I'm not in favor of that. I don't think their board has the authority. I certainly wouldn't be in favor of an interlocal agreement agreeing to that by any means. We have a mission, and until this board is dissolved, we're not going to stray from that mission. So I don't think it's necessary for us to meet with them. I don't think it's necessary to put a ballot referendum. I think we could send a letter to our local delegation and say, hey, we're fine with it. But in the meantime, we're still going to conduct the business that we were appointed to do, and that's provide indigent care. And in the meantime, with the vacant buildings, find medical related end users.
If it helps any.
Yes, sir.
Any referendum at this point would be only that a straw vote, would have no legal effect whatsoever. I'm not sure. I had to research whether they can put such a referendum on the ballot that affects us. But I do know that essentially for this body, there are two methods by which it can be dissolved. One, if the governing body created pursuant to a special act, elects by a majority vote +1 to dissolve the district, the voluntary dissolution of an independent special district created and operating pursuant to a special act may be effectuated only by the legislature until otherwise provided by law. So this, you could vote and then it'd be up to the legislature. In order for the legislature to come in to dissolve an active independent special district, the special act dissolving the active independent special district must be approved by a majority of the resident electors of the district. It goes on to say, or if you're a landowner, if landowners elect the members of the district, the landowners, that doesn't apply to us.
If a local general purpose government passes an ordinance or resolution in support of the dissolution, the local general purpose government must pay any expenses associated with the referendum required under this paragraph. We are not created by the county. We are not created by any municipality. Therefore, they don't have the authority to dissolve us. So put simply, the legislature would have to pass a special act in the next session to dissolve the Lake City Hospital Authority. That special act must then be placed on the ballot to be approved by a majority of the Columbia County voters. And in the event that Columbia County decided at that point that they wanted to support such a dissolution and passed an ordinance or resolution to that effect, then they pay the expenses associated with the referendum. I can only assume, because the statute doesn't reference it, if the legislature passes the special act, I can only assume they would pay, put it on the ballot, essentially, though the county pays for all elections. It'd just be a matter of procedurally within that election law, how you put that special act on as a referendum. But there's nothing in the statute that requires us to pay anything or do anything. So right now, it would be if the special act got passed by the legislature in the next session, then the county or the city could pass a resolution or ordinance approving of the dissolution. They're on the hook for it being on the ballot. So that's the procedure. Nothing really can happen until someone in the state legislature gets a special act passed, because we are created by a special act. Okay. Unless we vote majority plus one to dissolve. And then they would need to pass a special act.
Steve,
Yes, ma'am.
I've been on this board longer than any of you. Okay, including before Sonia was hired. This question has come up every few years. And the county wants to take over everything, but they don't say what they're going to provide. And then it goes away. Not for a long time. So I don't see any reason to even just send them a letter and say, we decline the invitation.
I'll make the motion whenever the time comes, whenever we have the buildings taken care of, that we dissolve, and I'll hope that we have a majority plus one to do that and send it to the legislature. I'm fine with dissolving this board. I have absolutely no issue with it. In fact, once we find end users for the buildings, I'll make that motion and then shortly after resign from this board. But I'm not, I don't think meeting, I don't know. They can put a referendum on there. Somebody has to ask the legislature to do something about it. We can ask them. I'm fine with us asking them. If we get a consensus tonight to do that, we can ask. It would be July or October of 25 before that would take effect. And I would certainly hope that we would have everything done. I hope we have everything done before the end of this year with the buildings.
So the issue on the agenda is discussion, possible action, whether or not to have the meeting with the county. I think the only benefit, because any referendum put on the current ballot would be nothing but a straw vote, even if that's legal. I don't know if it is or not. Would be just, I guess, a discussion about what we do. Do they understand what our role is in the buildings and the healthcare, and do they really want to take over indigent healthcare? I could be a discussion at that point, but that's up to this board.
That isn't what they want the buildings for.
Right.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kennan. You're saying that the Board of County Commissioners do not have the authority to request a referendum on the ballot?
No, I didn't say that. I said, I don't know if they have the legal right to put a non-binding referendum on the ballot that would affect us. I haven't done that research. The research I have done is how this board can be dissolved. And it is my opinion that the county nor the city can dissolve this board by ordinance, resolution or referendum.
Only this board could vote on it.
Only this board can dissolve itself, or the legislature can step in, pass a special act, which then must be approved by the majority of the voters in Columbia County, which is where we serve. And there's the caveat sentence that if any one of the governments wants to pass an ordinance or resolution to approve the dissolution, then they then become on the hook for whatever cost of putting it on the ballot. But it's gonna take, in my opinion, it's going to take a special act of the legislature before anything even starts moving forward.
Okay. And as far as this board, you kept saying a majority plus one, meaning that there's 5 members currently on this board, meaning that it would take four votes.
As it
4
currently
yes.
constitutes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, first of all, I don't have a problem with listening. I'll listen to anybody. And going to listen to them, but why can't we think about having our attorney, Mr. Kennan, confer with Mr. Foreman, our elected county attorney, and discuss this just as Mr. Kennan did with us, to let him know, and then he can convey that to his board.
I have discussed.
Oh, you have?
Today.
Oh,
And
okay.
it seems like, unless he's changed his opinion, that he agrees with my analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then-
Okay, so Joel knows.
Then we got to my next, thank you, Mr. Kennan.
I tried to cut that off at the pass.
I appreciate it.
And what's the time frame again, just so I know, if the state legislature were to step in, what is the time frame until action is actually taken? Let's say if we don't vote to dissolve ourselves, if the state comes in and dissolves us, what's the?
It's when they would have to vote to approve a special act. As part of that vote, it would have a start date, an effective date, and then it would be the next properly scheduled cycled election, statewide election, I'm assuming, in which that would be put on as a referendum.
They could pay for a special.
That's
election, probably.
a yay or nay, but do you agree with the special act that reads as follows? Yes or no?
And that's a 2025 thing.
Yeah, it'd be
late
till
November.
the next legislative session.
Thank you for the rest of the story, Mr. Kennan. So I assume that Mr. Foreman will be advising his board through Mr. Kraus that there's no need to meet on the 15th.
I don't know that he didn't say that. He just agreed, I think, with my analysis that is the process.
Then I
again,
guess,
indicated if that is the process, a special meeting would serve only the purpose probably of if someone had something to say to the other board.
Yeah.
Then that's a public forum by which they could say it.
okay. I agree with Ms. Chauncey and Mr. Bill. Yeah, we don't need to meet with them, but if they insist that they would like to at least listen to them, I don't have any problems going to listen, and maybe Mr. Williams and I can go and listen and not make any comments at all. Just listen to see what their thoughts are. I mean,
Well, you don't need a joint meeting though for that.
I agree.
What their timing was, is in order for them to get a question on the ballot, they have to have that
Yes, sir.
question
By
to
August
supervisor
1st.
of elections by
Right.
August 1st.
Right.
They will meet again on the third Thursday, 16th?
Hang on.
No,
I don't want to mess up the report.
I guess my only point is I don't mind being a good neighbor with the other board, just like if the city wanted to meet with us, I wouldn't have any problems meeting with the city and the new mayor when he.
I think it's
takes
the
over.
18th.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
on the 18th, I would expect that that's going to be an agenda item on their agenda. And obviously, at a regular meeting, we could attend and speak if you ask us to. Based on the conversation of the trustees, I think you or I, need to write them a letter and say it was discussed.
Yeah.
The trustees are declining the opportunity to meet. We may attend, some of us may attend the meeting on the 18th and comment, whatever it is we're going to say, but I think it needs to be communicated in writing. And I think because Todd has had conversation with Joel, Todd should be the one to do that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kennon.
And Todd,
Yes, ma'am.
could you send us each a copy of the letter so that when people approach us, we have an answer?
Chairman, can I make one statement quick?
Super duper brief, please.
Um,
Try not to
Jennifer
open this up.
Bradley, not Jennifer, but her husband, years ago, when I would approach the legislative delegation to consider dissolving this board. And especially since you're ill-formed, illegitimate board now, I'm surprised the government hasn't come in, Governor Santos has complained.
Okay.
And it was Bradley that suggested that we have the citizens vote to see if we wanted to continue this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I said, it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, it seems, that's what I'm sensing, and then thank you.
So
Sarah, for your
probably
comments.
then to resolve the issue, a motion to decline to have a joint meeting with the county.
Do we have to have a motion? Or
We,
I
are we
don't
voting
I'll
on it?
make a motion to decline a joint meeting. I mean, I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it's necessary. I think we respond with a letter.
We can do that.
But I'll make that
I
motion.
mean, it was just a request for us to consider whether to have a joint meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just want to remind the trustees as a sidebar, in the 2024 legislative session, a bill was created. I think everybody thought it was definitely going to pass. And it was going to require that every independent special district in the state of Florida go to the ballot to be reaffirmed. And then they had procedures. If it was reaffirmed, what you had to do. If it wasn't reaffirmed, what you had to do. And it was not until the 11th hour that was killed. And I understood it was basically killed because of some disagreements with the committee chair on a non-related item. I don't know. Somebody told me that. So Tallahassee works like Tallahassee works. Y'all know that. But I do know that everything I've heard says that same bill is going to be represented in the 2025 legislative session. So regardless of what we do, there may be a bigger mandate adopted by the legislature that ends up requiring the referendum. And if it does, it will certainly be under a different circumstance than what Todd, because there'll be a new set of laws that will be different than what Todd just relayed.
Gotcha.
They'll have their own procedure laid out as to how the referendums.
Yeah. So I don't, all I want to do is remind you, because I think I sent every one of you that piece of legislation.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to unfinished business. Mr. Kennon. Hang on, before we do it, I know I'm trying to do this right. Do we have any public comments on this unfinished business?
Absolutely.
Mr. Warren.
Thank you for recognizing me, Michelle.
Yes, sir.
The first thing I would like to say is that we exhausted a lot of time about the authority board. And I really appreciate what Mr. Bill said, that as long as he sits there, he understands that his mission is imaging care and putting people that are ready to be contracted in those buildings so that they can provide the necessary imaging care and care other people in this area. And this area is growing and it needs that type of care. So I commend Mr. Bill for his steadfastness, which he was appointed. That being said, I do appreciate this board not continually insulting or what I felt was hijacking the property from the Masons. I think there's a $5,000 difference as to what the Masons are willing to agree to. I would pray that if it is a $5,000 difference, that we can all get along. and say, if the margin of error is $5,000, I think I'm quoting Dale now in the paper. That this board, he believes, I believe that the trustees, they would be willing, if it's just a hair difference of $5,000. I can't specifically say, but I believe that my board would not be opposed to such action. And I believe Dale is right. And I hope he's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Any other public comments before we bring? Go for it, Ms. Lynn.
The lot in question. Meridian doesn't really have to have that. The parking states it has to be convenient and safe. If you talk to Saeed behind me with ACA, it doesn't have to be adjacent. It just has to be convenient and safe. And they can walk. They can get a little show cart for visitors to come. But I don't think we need to bow down for $5,000. They take it or leave it. It doesn't have to happen, and maybe Mr. Savoy should have done some further research. Because if you're at North Florida Regional, they have parking adjacent, but then they've got the parking garage across the street. That's considered safe and convenient. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Any further public comment on the unfinished item?
Mr. Chairman, is this when I spoke, did I just speak to Lake Shore, or did I speak to all 3 items? Because there's 3 items up under this. I'm confused.
I'm only gonna discuss one.
Just one, okay.
1 and 2 combined.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any involvement in
Okay.
number 3.
There we go. Yeah, let's leave it at 1 and 2 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's start. Everybody's good. Let's cover that ground, Mr.
All right, so brief recap, June 26th, we sent a letter to the Masons, to tender the sum of $120,000 in exchange for termination of the reverter clause on block 111 and confirmation the Masons do not have any other reverter rights as the other parcels of real property they previously conveyed to Lakeshore Hospital. If you'll recall, there was some discussion on a September 30th, 1968 deed where they conveyed 3 parcels of property to the authority. That deed clearly does not contain any reverter clause. The title insurance company that examined, and this will be part of the hospital building, they did not identify any reverter in that deed. So that was the reason for just a confirmation that any other properties that they had previously conveyed to the authority does not have a reverter, so that we're be done once and for all with reverter clauses to the Masons. So as you are aware, we initially had 2 appraisals, one effective February, Chandler Moses, 88 grand. We got a second one out of abundance of caution, Moody Williams, as of June 23rd, 2024. Vacant value $120,000, which is what led us to make the offer of $120,000. Received a letter June 28th from Mr. Dees, who represents the Masons. He indicates that, and we've been over their internal procedures, that if they present something in 1 month, they have to poll the membership, give them a chance to come to a meeting the next month, et cetera, et cetera. So the way I read the letter is the lodge has already approved a sale price of $125,000. Now, that doesn't mention also a confirmation there's no other reverter clauses out there, but I confirmed that with Mr. Dees. Apparently, internal procedures of the lodge direct the issue be referred not to the meeting to be held July 18th, but to the meeting to be held on August 15th. So that's when they first could address our $120,000. At that time, the lodge will vote on whether to accept your offer of $120 or to insist on a sale price of $125. At all events, because of internal lodge procedures, even if the lodge votes to accept the $120,000 price, final adoption as that sale price will not be had until September 5th, 2024. So essentially, if the authority wishes to match their offer of $125, it'd be probably in consideration of the highest appraised value of the two that the authority obtained, and any additional consideration, just to clear up that there are no other reverter clauses on the other three parcels previously conveyed to the authority in 1968. So I think you would be well in your bounds to do that. I can draft a reverter release agreement that addresses the 111 and any other properties, and then put together a quick claim deed to tender with whatever check you decide to put. That's the history.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr.
So they'll take 125. That's already been authorized by their membership. They can take.
Yes, the only caveat is to make sure that they confirm that there's no reverter clause, and myself, two or three other lawyers, the lawyers from Meridian, the title company, they have all identified that there is no reverter clause in that 1968 deed. But for an extra $5,000, hopefully we clear that issue up, and we've satisfied everybody that their reverter clauses as to the Masons are done.
We would be within our legal right to pay $5,000 over.
I think in consideration for that, to resolve that issue that has been brought to our attention, I think you'd be well within your means.
Can I say something?
Can we wait 1 second while we swap tapes? We're at
Yeah.
that point where we're on tape number 3.
Can I take Sally out while you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's the perfect time to do it. Bear with us.
I understand.
There's never a good time to break it. I'm not gonna notice that. As long as it's over there. Yeah, the dog's gotta pee, the tape's gotta get switched, this was rough.
Sorry, Brandon.
Yeah.
We don't.
Digital.
Hey.
Barbara, calm down.
Hey, let's make a motion. Can we do that?
Ask Carl.
Carl, we make a motion for a digital recorder.
You have to talk to the lady over there about that.
I mean, we're burning for.
Carl says.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea.
So rough for y'all. I'm not even the least bit tired.
Yeah, right. So you're gonna be working on 40 days.
Stephen, that's good, because we'll probably think about it.
Oh.
Yeah, just one more quick hour. Go by like that.
Running here.
Okay. Yeah, but we can do primary.
All right, well, I'll be ready when we're ready.
Susie's not ready yet.
I know.
Is that the name of the dog?
It's Sally.
Sally.
I called her Susie.
I couldn't remember. Gee.
I don't know how appropriate that would be, but you could do it.
Think I get a second?
Probably not.
Yeah.
That's why I keep moving back. to
Yeah,
the-
we've sanded the floors and I've got a, did the,
On the
tunnels
beach.
down on it, the guys doing tile on the bathroom.
So
Dinner phrases. Says for.
we could. We're gonna have all day
Like,
Saturday.
lower the price of his affordable home.
10. Oh, no.
So coming back
I never-
from San Diego, not San Diego, Tijuana, you
Standing
lose
in the
4 hours.
tidal pool.
Is that where the wedding was, Tijuana?
That
The
water-
wedding was in Guadalupe,
Okay.
which is
So.
essentially, have you ever been to Napa
Months. Everybody.
Napa.
Valley, California?
Oh, yeah.
It's like that
The men can't be.
in Mexico.
Trying to go out.
And I'm telling you,
Flatbed.
I wouldn't have believed it until you saw it.
Reload everything.
Now, only difference is, Bring a four-wheel drive vehicle, because the roads
Chair, coolers.
horrible. It's such a rocky area.
Sally says thank you.
No problem.
Leave, go down to the
But great
dealership,
vineyards,
load up
all the stuff.
coolers,
Weather's perfect for it.
go
All- I mean, it's,
same thing.
I stand corrected. and it's a little bit wild west. We went by a restaurant that had goats on this side, bulls on this side, and chickens down here. And I'm not saying you point to them, but they got them that morning. It was wild. Huh?
Fertilizer for the grapes.
So I don't even know if they can get inorganic stuff.
We were on how many couples?
But it's pretty wild. I mean, the soil's pretty fertile because there's never been irrigation down there until recent.
Stephen, if we vote on this, I can't vote.
If we what?
If we vote on this, I can't vote.
12 to 15.
Okay, well, let's bring it.
Recording.
They're recording. All right, we're back in session. Okay. So Miss Chancey, we stopped. I told you to hold, please. You have a comment? Go ahead.
Okay, when it comes to the vote on the Masonic stuff, I can't vote.
Okay, why is that?
Personal interest,
Person,
personal involvement.
okay. A conflict. Didn't we have this before? Do you, didn't you opt out of a vote or? Come on, somebody help me jog my memory.
I
Are we
don't-
allowed to do that? To decline?
If she's stating that type of conflict of interest, then yes.
So does that mean at that
If
point?
she does not, I can't, it came up one other time, but when this is the first time, I think. I don't know, did you vote on the 120?
I don't remember, but I know that
don't
I
think so.
can't. I don't think I did.
And,
Or if I did, I voted no.
Can he pass the gavel to me and then I pass the gavel to her so we can still have a quorum and move forward?
Yeah,
with
that's
business?
what you have to do.
Do what you have to do.
Either that or we need to have a special meeting on Monday, the 22nd.
Can you just pass the gavel to me, Chairman?
I'd love to.
Before I come over, Miss Chancey, would you please take the gavel?
Here you go. We're just gonna.
Get
Well,
up.
hang on,
As secretary treasurer.
Can we?
I'm gonna tell you, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the chair always has the option of passing the gavel.
To be safe.
Don't
you
they?
wanna- I don't know the answer to the question off the top of my head.
It's true.
It's true.
That's true.
It's true. The chairman has the right.
So if you wanted to do it that way, make a motion to pass the gavel to Miss Chancey, who's willing to accept it.
What's left on the agenda? What
Well,
else we gotta cover?
I can give it right back after the vote. And if you're nice to me, I
I
will.
don't know if we need to go through the order. I mean, I'm the vice chair, she's the secretary. I didn't know if we need to go through the order. Or, I mean, I'll make a motion to pass the gavel to the secretary, Ms. Chancey.
A motion to. Go ahead.
I have a question, another legal question. Mrs. Chancey is, not an actual full-fledged member of the Masons, only her husband is. So how would she benefit from this vote?
She sleeps on them.
Hey,
Yes,
Well,
I
if she-
do.
If she stated on the record she has that type of conflict, I don't think she should. move
Okay.
forward.
Let me put it this way. 6 generations of Masons, and I am a member of an appellate Masonic organization.
Never the gavel.
Therefore, personal interest.
Right.
And the only woman on the board, so I'm giving you a problem.
Or would it, if she doesn't vote and Mr. Kennedy and I vote opposing and the chair gets to decide, would that be a safer bet?
It's not a tie. Well, it'd be, y'all have,
If Mr. Kennedy and I opposed views,
Yeah.
if y'all oppose the views, then you would have to break a tie.
there's nobody to say, well, yeah.
Does that work?
And then if it passed 3-1 on that vote, then it would pass as a majority of 5.
But that's only 2. Or is it?
2-1, but it's,
So if she abstains, then you bring the motor, well, only you don't have a quorum at that point.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you don't have a quorum.
So we can pass the gavel.
Pass the gavel for this one, right? And then
I will
then
take, pass the gavel.
it's
and-
returned and then,
Yeah.
Just continue, Chair.
And you
The
and Douglas,
the
they don't
record
want a gavel
reflect, Mr.
anyhow,
Bill
right?
has
Steve?
declined to
Huh?
accept
You
it.
and Douglas, they don't want a gavel anyhow, right?
all these,
Parliamentary procedure says you can pass the gavel.
Yes.
Do you want me to announce that I have the gavel?
Yeah, I think the record will reflect that Mr. Bill, Mr.
that's true.
Douglas was gonna pass the gavel, Mr. Bill declined, and as third in line, Secretary Treasurer, you accepted the gavel. So the issue now is how to deal with any offer to the Masons relative to their $125,000.
I will entertain a motion from the membership.
It would be 125 and confirmation that that is their only revert. They've given us 4 properties that we identified over the years, 3 in the 68 deed and then the old deed on block 111.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we offer the Masons $125,000 with the release of any known or unknown reverter clauses.
Motion has been made.
Since
Do
I don't
we have a
get,
second?
since I don't get the chance, can I second it?
You may.
Unless you got any more further comments, Mr. Kennedy? None.
Hello, it's still my.
I'm just asking, I didn't want
Are
to
there
jump in front of
any
it.
comments on the motion on
Sorry,
the
old
floor?
habits.
You gave it to her.
Can't wait to read this in the Lake City Reporter.
You're gonna look nice in.
Okay.
You got John, you think?
Then let's vote.
Roll call vote, please, Madam Chair.
Brandon,
Yes.
your vote, please.
Yes.
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 It has been affirmed that the motion is passed. How's that?
I'll proceed accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
I'll get in touch with Mr. Dees tomorrow, or Wednesday at the latest.
Should I take it back now?
Yes,
Okay.
I give the gavel back to Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Mr. Kennedy.
Question, Mr. Kennan, now that that motion is passed, can we go ahead and, cut the check to them tonight?
I don't cut checks, but.
No, I'm, our
Okay.
Secretary and Treasurer. was-
Well, you can cut, yeah, the answer is yes, I'll be touching base with Mr. Dees Tuesday or Wednesday to see what procedure he feels comfortable with.
Okay, now. With my history. As soon as they are notified that this has been accepted, they will bring it up at their next meeting,
Well,
which will be a week from Thursday.
Yeah, from what I understand,
And
the
they-
letter that Mr. Dees wrote is that, read the first sentence, Mr. Kennan.
At least from Mr. Dees, the lodge has already approved the sale price of 125.
They
The
have
only-
approved that.
Right.
The only thing they needed to do would be if they wanted to consider our 120.
Right, so the check can be written for them to pick up this week, correct?
However, before they can accept it, if I'm not mistaken, they have to send out a summons to all their members.
No, that's not what the letter said from the attorney.
Well, I'll find out from
Yeah.
Mr. Dees Tuesday
Thank
or
you.
Wednesday and see if the way we read it is right so that we can expedite it quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, I read it as it remains open. The offer is open. So we accept and in my mind, I'm with you, Mr. Kennedy. It's done.
And it may be,
I'm hoping.
but they can't get rid of the property without a summons.
But, Mr. Chair, we are gonna have the check ready tonight and
I'll stay here and sign it. I don't care. Time's nothing but a thing.
thank you.
I love staying up. All right, we're going into the record books, on to the third. The third item, an unfinished business. We withheld comments on this. Are there public comments? Mr. Warren,
And this is number 3.
number 3. I am texting my wife to tell her, no, I'm not done.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I will refer back to my opening statements, as it relates to public comments. Again, I'm disappointed with this board and how people keep jumping line. I think I've went through this before when the courthouse jumped the line. Now Toby is jumping the line. There's other people that have been in contract negotiations for lease of buildings that have not manifest or have not came to any type of fruition. You take Meridian, they just left. I think Dr. Mayo, y'all voted for her to be up on the contract. I think y'all met with the birthing center. I think that y'all been in contact with FAMU. And I don't understand. I don't even recall Toby even filing for a RFP. Did he not?
I don't recall.
So, but at y'all last meeting, y'all declared that the RFP was the deadline for anybody that wanted anything from this board. Y'all said, if nobody files and turn their stuff by the 17th, it is over. How did he make his way back on this? How did he make his 1%? How is this happening? This is the stuff that upsets people like me and other people. This is power structure. This is good old boy stuff. It's gotta stop. It is. Me and you've had conversation in the past that you would not be a part of this type of stuff. This stuff has to play out and die out. This ain't right. For people who have been waiting in the wings to get in a contract negotiation and he just come in, bam, he's on the agenda. We ready to discuss and give him a lease. As a matter of fact, I watched the last meeting. No disrespect, Brandon, but he was ready to make the motion. Don never heard what the motion was and was ready to second it. And it was Mr. Kennan who stopped everybody and said, whoa, wait a minute, we're getting ahead of ourselves, because if we jump this ship and we do this, we're gonna do the same for everybody else and yada, yada, yada. And that's what stopped it. I watched the meeting. I was out of state, but I watched it. It's disgusting. Why are we doing this? Why are we not prioritizing the people who have actually agreed to go under contract, and where are those contract negotiations at? Why are y'all not holding people's feet to the fire about contracts that y'all have voted for the attorney and the director to do and be involved in? I don't understand this, Douglas. You the chair. Why are we not doing any follow-ups? Why are we not holding people accountable? Why is Toby on here? Y'all said out y'all own mouth. No more people after the 17th of April. That's what y'all said. So y'all liars?
I don't think so.
So how?
Well, you'll see. We'll get there.
Who makes the agenda? Who makes the agenda? How people get on the agenda? I'm just asking a question. How do people get on the agenda? Y'all don't get a say in the agenda. I'm just curious.
No, we get it. We do get a say. I asked Dale to put the agendas together.
Right. So you seen this is gonna go on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
And you agreed to allow this to go on the agenda. After you all voted, nobody else can go and ask for anything after April 17th.
I think when we finish the discussion, you'll be pleasant, not pleasant, you'll understand it a lot more as I understand.
Okay, so we're gonna understand why nobody else has gotten their contracts done as well too.
Yes.
And we're gonna get down to the bottom of all this tonight, it seems like.
Much as possible, yes. Much as because I ask your same questions.
Yeah, okay.
Any other, Ms. Mayo, you have a comment?
Well, yeah. I was too, shocked. I saw like I said, I go back to the newspaper readings and then I seen this, which prompted me to email everybody on the board because I woke up and I was really upset.
Yes, ma'am.
Because, like I said, we've been spending time or not spending time since February negotiating or not negotiating a contract. Every time I post anything, it come up about, for profit. I looked it up, if it's for profit. there seemed to be absolutely no issue, no obstacles, no red tapes, no anything for this to approach the agenda, and it's a for-profit. Yet, every time something came up with me, it was a for-profit issue. However, everything that I read when it pertains to hospital and hospital facilities, for-profit does not matter. Nonprofit, it doesn't matter, whether you're a for-profit or nonprofit. So I've asked that question to the attorney before, and I haven't received any answer as to where does it pose any issues for for-profit to do business within hospital entity or hospital facilities. I've not received any responses, yet that's still been a block for some reason when it comes down to things that other individuals are trying to do. However, Toby came on, or the Columbia EMS Inc. came on, and it seemed that there was absolutely no issues. I was also disappointed that whenever the RFP was posed, that facility was not listed. It seemed as if it was not listed intentionally because it already had a prior tenant waiting for it. It was not listed. So it just seems concerning, like the individual says, like the transparency is not there. I did ask, I kept asking about other properties that I saw property appraiser that belonged to LSHA Hospital Authority. And I got, answers, but not ever offered to go look at those other properties. And I'm thinking that this is probably why, or it feels that way. I'm not pointing fingers or anything, or not trying to insinuate anything. Well, I guess I am, but it just seems that it was like an intentional reason. And as things are unfolding, it's almost like the puzzle is missing just one last piece before it's complete as to why there's such a hindrance for medical services to take place on the campus. For something like this to jump the board of all the medical services. And I've reached out to FAMU several times at the request of individuals on the board to reach out to them. They're wanting the campus, the entire campus. They can be donated to campus, to my understanding, because they are a government board at no conflict. And they are in hopes of that. But when you see referendums and you see other people jumping and you see dismantling, it kind of like, is that really what we want? Do we really want the medical services? Or are we just here to continue to stall until the county takes over the board?
Thank you, Ms. May.
Thank you.
Any additional public comments? So.
Sure.
Please, Mr. Beal.
Just for my understanding and to address some of the issues brought up in public comment. My understanding, the building that Columbia EMS is interested in wasn't listed because it really wasn't, I wouldn't have imagined it being used for medical purposes. It's like a metal building, metal storage building, not really a doctor's office type of facility. I agree 100%. I think Dell knows that I feel like I'm probably the most frustrated member up here because it's taken us so long to get to where we are. And I think the for-profit, not-for-profit has more to do with what the Lakeshore Hospital Authority can pay for to do any kind of renovations. At least that's been my understanding. I think if Dr. Mayo is okay with a lease like we're offering to Columbia EMS, let's have a special meeting in however many days it takes us to get a meeting scheduled and offer that lease. I mean, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
It's my understanding, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that EMS wanted to come in lease only, just wanted that physical property to house their medical transport, is that the correct way to term it? And they wanted lease only. So they're not offering services, they're not looking for reimbursement, they're not asking for anything other than, we want that building, can we lease that from you? Which was my understanding. The difference between that and, for instance, your facility, Ms. Mayo, is it Dr. Mayo or Ms. Mayo?
No.
Dr. Mayo, sorry. I'm trying to be polite. Dr. Mayo, your facility, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have, you're requesting a lease. There may or may not be portions of that lease that you would like for us to pay for, or renovations, or that nature, and then the services as well. So there's a handful more components. I know we tried to get through that with the whites, and that took, I mean, what, the Meridian's somewhere around 2 years, and the whites are somewhere around a year and a half before they closed up shop, and we figured out we just could not pay them anything like that. So that was my understanding. The reason it was simple was that they could come in, pick up a physical asset, lease it from us, and all they requested in return was we give them lease money back based on the amount of money they put into the facility, which I don't believe is going to be a large dollar item. To Mr. Beal's credit, I know that when the Third Circuit came in and asked for the Women's Center, that was a lot similar concept and how fast they could move because it was just a physical lease. But again, to Mr. Beal's comment, Brandon said, no, we're doing medical. So that would answer that component. To me, that answered that component. I don't know if that satisfies you, but to me, that satisfied your question. But they'll pick up if I miss something.
So you saying that you're okay with not going to an RFP?
No, I'm saying, I agree with Mr. Beal. I don't think that was we weren't intending on that being a medical facility.
But now you're using this one, so you should back up and plan. Like, you can't have two set of rules.
Well, maybe.
You can't have two set of rules.
I
That's the problem with the hood and the other side in the suburbs. Now it's two set of standards. Just in the criminal justice system, there's a disparity. If you do this now, you're creating a disparity within the organization of the authority board. You get ready to create a disparity. By you being a chair making a decision like this, it's a disparity. It's two set of rules.
Fair enough, fair enough. Ms. Mayo, you had a
I
comment?
think that to assume that it can't be used for medical purposes is a bad assumption because there are closed door facilities that can house medical services for public interest. So I think the assumption that it could not be was the wrong assumption to make. I think that it should have been placed on there if it was a property that the Lake Shore Authority owns and has available for services. I think it should have been placed and left up to the individuals who service or provide medical service to make that decision on if it was something useful for them or not.
Fair enough.
How you know somebody else didn't want it?
We don't. May I make a comment?
Yes.
Being the only one on the board that has ever worked in a medical facility, I will say that unfortunately, others are unaware of what can or cannot be used. So, but they're doing their best. Now, doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but they're doing their best with what they know. They have a more idealized idea of medical facilities. Okay, but very honestly, that particular facility is not one that very many people would have thought of. And I'm not saying, Sylvester, not too many people would have ever thought of that as being a medical facility. Now, what EMS is doing is parking cars there. And the people that are on call are spending the night there. That isn't a medical facility either. It provides medical services outside the facility.
Ms. Johnson, man, if I would have known, it's like I went and when Dale exhausted him, he came to me and other people exhausted themselves came to me, I went and got y'all every service that y'all asked for.
Yes, you did.
All right, second thing, if I would have known that building was up and could have been used and was a part of RFP, I would have had somebody from that building. My family owned the largest non-emergency transportation company in North Florida.
Yeah.
Period. LNG Transit. So there's no question that I would have found a provider for that particular building, like I have found a provider for every building that y'all have.
Point taken. But think about what I said too.
But you want me to, cause
Okay.
you saying cause we're dealing with lay people? When it
Yeah.
comes to medical?
Yeah. Now, you have to accept that. They all think I'm an idiot. I'm the only one that's worked in a hospital over 50 years.
Yeah, I see.
You think maybe I know?
I
Thank
agree.
you, Steve.
Yes, ma'am. So, okay,
Do we have the lease for Columbia EMS?
Mr. Williams.
Just some clarifications, Mr. Chairman. Number one is in the opening comments, Mr. Warren mentioned about a potential conflict of interest involving Mr. Kennan. Mr. Kennan contacted me immediately after the last meeting. Todd, you correct me if I'm wrong. You basically said you didn't know if there was a conflict or not. However, there was a perception of one. Therefore, you were not going to participate in the preparation of this lease and asked me if I would handle that. And I said I would. So what I did is I took a template and it's got blanks all through it as far as amounts and et cetera. I do have a copy of that template with me. I wanted to ask permission from the trustees to be able to submit that to Marlon Fiegel, who does the conflict counsel work for the authority, where they can review it for sufficiency. I will also send a copy to Columbia EMS, where they can hand that to their attorney for review. It was also questioned how Mr. Wick was placed on the agenda. At some point, they submitted a proposal to provide emergency medical services for the county, and they were awarded that contract. They were looking because they said based on their business model, they needed to locate a office in this particular area and asked, was the campus available? I said, you're welcome to look, and then you're welcome to come to the trustee meeting and present or ask for whatever it is you may feel necessary. That's how he got on the agenda. And he came at the last meeting, and as been stated, it's just a straight lease. There's nothing fancy about it whatsoever, but it does need to be reviewed by counsel. And in this case, that would be Marlon as conflict counsel. And it does need to be reviewed by their attorney. And then if there's issues, they can discuss it amongst themselves. But yeah, did prepare one.
Okay. So at this point, it's basically under review to see if it passes the conflict test.
Yeah, and the main reason I wanted to discuss it tonight was to make sure that I had authorization to send it to Marlon.
I'll make a motion that we use conflict counsel to review the lease and present it to Columbia EMS after council has an opportunity to review it.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to review the lease with conflict counsel and present it to EMS,
Well,
Columbia EMS,
I'll make a comment also.
please.
And just to say, because it is providing medical services, like Ms. Chancey said, I don't think you're an idiot, Ms. Chancey. It is providing, and I mean, I would have never thought to have included that as a medical facility. That's just me. I'm not saying, maybe I am ignorant when it comes to that. I mean, and that's fine. I'll be the first to admit it, but I just wouldn't have. And I mean, I think that's why it wasn't, I truly believe that's why it wasn't included in the RFP, because I wouldn't see a medical related use for that building that's been used as storage for so many years. And like I've stated earlier, when we get to the next bullet point, I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward with the next thing as well. But that was my comment for that.
Motion and a second on the board. We want to do a roll call
Yes,
vote?
please, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Chelsea?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. All right. Surely there's got to be more. The last item, update discussion
Two
efforts.
more.
Two more?
Elevator.
Did we just pass three?
We got an elevator.
Elevator, yeah.
I
This is
make a
great.
motion that we repair the elevator.
No, we'll bring it up in a second. Let's get this one out of the way. Update discussion efforts to provide medical services and or utilize buildings on Lakeshore Hospital campus.
Okay, let me start because they were mentioned earlier, Florida A&M University.
Yes, sir.
Dean Spates had the opportunity to speak with the other deans of Florida A&M. They did try to arrange a site visit a week or so ago. Dwayne was not available, so we advised them of that. We told them they were more than welcome to come, but they would have to basically tour the buildings, allowing security to let them in because Dwayne would not be available. Most people who tour the buildings like Dwayne to be there because he's the best source of knowledge. So we thanked them and invited them to reschedule, and to my knowledge, they have not attempted to reschedule as of this date. Lifetree, I sent a email over a week ago, basically saying, you know, if you have any questions, if there are any things that need to be discussed, please let me know. To my knowledge, they have not responded to that. And then, of course, we have the ongoing negotiations with Erica. And as was discussed here today, and I can assure you that Brandon and I have not had conversation, but I have gotten emails from Erica. I've gotten communication from Mr. Warren. They obviously feel like somebody is not being done properly here. So I just gutted everything about the business model out and prepared a simple lease, just like we've talked about for EMS, just what was prepared by the county attorney. He was proposing to you for the two-story building. I have a copy of it here. Likewise, I would like to send that to Mr. Fiegel where he can review it for proper form and sufficiency. Give the copy to Dr. Mayo where she can let her counsel review it. And then, of course, once the terms and conditions are negotiated, you fill in the blanks, it can be presented back to the trustees. But I don't want anybody to get the impression that these were apples and apples. I submitted a copy of the proposed lease with the Whites just to sort of show what was involved. And you're correct, it went 1.5 years and they had legal counsel involved.
Yeah.
And at the very end, there's a couple of provisos that just couldn't be agreed upon. So after all that work, it ended up not being approved by either party. It's going to take time to do that part of it. And apparently Dr. Mayo would like to get started. And so here's an avenue for her to consider to do that. It's just a different kind of lease, or has a different, it doesn't have a business model attached to it. Straight lease.
So
Basic screw up.
I think it's, probably a misunderstanding as far as me feeling as someone's being treated unfairly. I think that from February to July is ample enough time to have some form of a contract written up for review. I could be wrong, but I just don't see where it takes 1 year almost to get one started. So I don't think that it's an unfair treatment. I think it's a lack of attention to what the need is. So if this was approved back in February, and I've only touched bases off the strength of when I ask, is that the focus? That's what I'm saying. It doesn't feel to be the focus, because I'll reach out to say, hey, following up. And then I'll get a response, and then I'll have a meeting set, but it's me doing the reaching, not the individuals who were directed to do so. So that's where it becomes a frustration when you see someone came in 5 days later, there's an act going on. So that's where the frustration comes. So, no, a simple lease is not what I'm going for. I'm trying to see when it's legal, one, to take the steps necessary to get some form of contract written up, especially when they already have a guide to go by with the EMS, the in-house contract. There's kind of already a template that they've already kind of formed. So that couldn't have been tweaked by now since February. That's where my frustration comes. So it seems to be just a lack of really urgency for what the need is on the campus. And then when it comes to FAMU, if you guys need medical on board, FAMU did ask. They did say they have a medical director that would be willing to sit. That hadn't been entertained any further, but they have a medical director that's willing so that we can have some medical representation on the board. I've informed that I would be interested in sitting so that there's some medical representation on the board, so that things such as a close or a warehouse or a facility such that we would have known that that could be used for a closed door system. And it wouldn't have been a lack of oversight. So there's been individuals that are interested, but that's where the frustration comes, because it seems that those individuals are not being entertained when it comes to the medical services and things that can be beneficial to this campus for the services of the community, the affected community, versus other entities. So that's where the frustration comes. It's not that I feel that I'm being treated unfairly. I feel that I'm not being entertained or negotiated as directed.
Mr. Chair.
Is it, yeah, go ahead.
You've had an opportunity to see the lease that EM Pals had.
Yeah.
I mean, can we change the name and put Dr. Erica Mayo and, I
I
mean,
will do my due justice to sit and act as legal and go through that contract and tweak it to my liking, if that's what I'm asked to do. If that's what you guys would prefer, if that's not what Mr. Kennett's there for. Like, I don't mind doing that. It just, I was
And,
expecting
I mean,
legal to take that.
and he is, but we've given him 13 other things to do tonight. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
not gonna, and he also has other clients that he represents. So I mean, I get your frustration. I'm right there with you. I wish it could have been done in February, but I've learned after being on this board for however many years now that nothing happens that quickly. Like I
Ever.
No.
truly wish that it did
It's
because
difficult, it's difficult because we only get to touch base once a month and we have to touch base here and it's hard for us to do the thing. But I like where you're going with
I
it,
mean,
take an EMS house thing and redline it. Send
Well,
us,
and
McKinnon,
Dale-
do you
Dale- to Dale's defense, he sent it to me for me to review for that purpose. And so that, you know, he doesn't think that I'm like, pointing the finger. I'm just trying to figure out how the contract come about when there's been other people that were directed to go into contract negotiation 5 months prior to this one. So if there was so much, you know, you got this client, this client, this client, it seems to me Toby would be all the way down on the end of the totem pole after the individuals that were already slated. Is
But,
it not first?
yeah,
come,
but I
first
think
serve, or
it is,
just-
but
It
because it's
is.
such a straight ground lease, I mean, it's just it's just a lease. You're paying this much for per square footage.
Irregardless.
with our
It's-
misconception about it not being able to be used as a facility, but yet we have already voted and entertained and pushed them forward. But I think a red line lease is, my opinion, where we need to move.
Let me mention one thing real quick before Erica spends a lot of time. Remember, Erica, that last draft, the one I sent you, was prepared by M-Pal's attorney. They took the work product of the authority, they made changes, they sent them back for review. There is a number of provisions in that agreement which the attorneys have determined to be illegal for the authority to do. So I would not want Erica to think anything in there you're in agreement to, because that was the exact agreement you said was invalid and you couldn't
Well,
approve.
where's the first draft that the attorney did that was in?
Well, we can get you several.
Yeah.
We can get you several that go through different stages. But that was the one most complete if, with those exceptions. So I was wondering if it would be possible to identify what those paragraphs were.
That were, yeah,
Then you could basically just review the
and
remainder.
you could view the remainder, yeah.
I didn't, and as you know, when it comes to that part of those contracts, you don't see me doing much of the talking. And that's above my pay grade.
Well, I think the other thing is to differentiate, I don't think there's any reason to work off their financial agreement at all. It would be, there were two documents, the financial agreement, which had the subsidies and the guarantees, and then there was a lease.
That's what I'm after. The financial side of it, you're just gonna have to start over.
Yeah, well, we didn't find much of that was usable, but there were, like I say, there were two separate, I'll look at my notes and my lease. It's probably gonna be Friday or Monday.
But could we construct a contract that was the ground lease is separate from the, it's a reimbursement component? Is
Well, there
that
were
what it
some
is?
crossovers, but we can take the ground lease. And identify which parts of those we had problems with and why, and work off the ground lease. There's no reason to work off the financial agreement part of it.
And you think within 10 business days that?
I'll try. I got a trial Thursday and 2 trials next week, so I'm doing the best. I'm getting there. But I will pull that lease with Ian Powell's for you.
And then some of the other,
Mr. Chairman, before you move on to this subject, I'd like to make a comment. But I defer to the board, of course.
No, please, let's hear it. Let's, be brief, please. We are stretching it.
Just for my understanding, the MPAL's lease is for a steel building.
2-story building on the lake.
2-story building on the lake, so it's finished, office space.
It's finished, but it would have to be modified to do the intended use.
Yes.
But again, it's not class A office space right now.
are you talking about the Columbia EMS or EM Pals?
The Columbia EMS, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay, that's different.
I'm sorry. the Columbia
Yeah,
EMS.
I was about to say, I'm like,
Yeah.
hang on, I'm confused now.
It's a metal storage building that sits on the northeast corner of the property.
Okay. That is what you have a gutted lease for, correct? And the building that you're now discussing is finished office space, yeah?
But again, just like the 2-story building, it's office space, but it's not suitable for the intended use without modification.
I get that. I'm just saying it's finished.
Right?
For
Then,
us.
Mr. Williams, my question is, wouldn't that finished office building amortize and depreciate at a different rate than a steel building?
Every day, all
Okay.
day.
And so then the value between them is different per square foot, yes?
Correct.
Good, then please keep in mind when you're negotiating a lease for a finished building, that the ballast and the air conditioning systems and the other things that are in that building depreciate much quicker, and I don't think you should just quickly, willy-nilly, write a lease and give it away for the cost of what you can rent a warehouse building for. Thank you.
Just keep in mind, the lease that was discussed is just full of blanks.
I get it, but I think it needs to have value for the building established and the depreciation of the building before you give it away for $1 a square foot, okay? Just keep in mind the
Okay.
value and the depreciation schedules. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go, yeah, bear with me.
I'm just here within the surface. So
I can, yeah,
So I'm confused. I was thinking that y'all were gonna have on red noses and certain suits and somebody was gonna be throwing 10 bottles and juggling. And I don't see that. I don't see that. And I'm confused as to how we get to this point where we don't have what we claim our intended purpose for y'all position on this board and what y'all voted to agree to expedite. Y'all agreed to expedite it. Y'all was so hell bent on expediting it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda. We said if nobody does this by April the 17th, we all agree to give it to the county. We agree to surplus. Is that not what this board said? Correct me if I'm wrong. That was the sentiment of the whole board out of each and every one of y'all mouth. And Don Kennedy, he can sit over there like he's time out. He remembers, and his job there was to hold Dale accountable. We had several conversations. Did we not, Mr. Kennedy?
I'm listening.
We're listening.
And that's the problem. There's too much listening. There's not enough action going on. And that becomes the issue. And why are we changing up horses in the middle of the race? I don't understand how you go from a term lease and now you're saying we're not gonna do a business structure lease because you in your feelings because you're getting called out. That's not right. You stick to the plan. You work through it, you man up, you admit your faults, you admit your mishaps, and you make good on your promises. Whether it's with pie on your face or not. That's what I'm saying. And I'm referring to Dale, I'm referring to you,
Okay.
I'm referring to the rest of the board members for not holding this accountable. This should have been over with by now. In any other world, this would be a done deal. It don't take this long. Don't take this long to do nothing. You're talking about putting together a business structure. It's not like we're talking about building a apartment complex. We're not talking about ordering material, doing a pro forma. We're not talking about all that. We're talking about y'all own some buildings. You're a landlord. You go in, a new tenant, you renovate it for your new tenant, and you lease it out. And they provide the services. It's simple. It seems like it's a stall tactic, and it's like not giving the community what they need. The community need these services. Why they don't have them yet is unbeknown to me. And the only people to blame is the people in this room that sit at the dices. Y'all are the ones to blame. When I go back to my community and ask me questions, activists, I'm pointing at you all. But there's an indifference syndrome because y'all don't live where I live at. Y'all don't care about people that I care about because y'all don't look like people that I look like. And y'all sit on this board and y'all don't expedite things because it doesn't affect your community the same. When you leave your house, you got somewhere in close proximity to go and get help and get your medical needs met. This community doesn't have that, Stephen. It doesn't have it. It doesn't have it. And it's y'all fault for not having it here. That's what y'all were given the responsibility of the governor to do exactly what I'm saying and doing. Whether you like how I said it or not, it's the truth.
Sure.
I understand. Mr. Bill.
I've had a couple of comments that I'm done with. It is a little bit, I hope we're done with public.
We are
comments.
done with public comment. We're here to return it.
So I think that, like it was stated, it's completely, it's apples and oranges. It has taken us 2 years with Meridian. It was 1.5 years with the EM House and it cannot be agreed upon. So, I mean, it's not an overnight process. I mean, trust me, 5 months, I wish it was done, but that's still a very short time compared to our track record, unfortunately. Not saying that should be the standard. I'm just saying that it has been. I would hope that our attorney can get a framework to Dr. Mayo within the next 10 business days, and we can move this process along. The anonymous Ms. Smith, I mean, there's a couple other things that, I mean, I've never quite understood mobile phlebotomy, what the ask was. Even in the proposal, it was explaining that it was a mobile service. So, I mean, if she's needing office space, that's one thing. Maybe we upstairs, I don't know. I mean, I think that we've I don't know what else we can do tonight talking about it. If somebody else has ideas on how we can move this process any faster, I'd love to hear it, but
Other than,
I'm ready to go.
other than just get squaring away the ground lease and then just moving forward with the rest of the remainder of the proposal. I think the ground lease is you gotta take it out one piece at a time, fast as we can go. I don't think we can do it any faster. My opinion. Any other board member comments?
I would like to know where we stand with FAMU. Where, are we on a hold until August? Is that it?
They've not told me that, but right now, I'm simply waiting on FAMU to reschedule.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I
I've got
needed.
My notes, so it's just a reschedule.
I agree with Mr. Beal. I agree with Ms. Chansey, Mr. Williams, if you don't mind. You mentioned about substitute counsel on this issue too. Can Mr. Kennan do this issue, or does Mr. Fiegel have to do this issue
Yeah, I
regarding the?
I can do.
No, he
Okay.
can do
All
that.
right, you had mentioned Mr. Fiegel, and, great, if we can get that, I agree with Mr. Brandon, if we can get it brought up as soon as possible, and if you don't mind, Mr. Williams, could you or Ms. Markham please email the directors at FAMU as well as the birthing center and say, we have not heard from you, could we please hear from you? If we don't hear from you by the first day of August, which is giving them ample time, then we're going to assume that they're no longer interested. So we can put that matter to rest. I don't know how the other fellow board members feel, but let's go ahead and do what we need to do.
I don't think I'd say by a certain date after we've given other people leeway.
That's what I'm saying. We'd like to hear from them as far as coming over to, I think, FAMU directors wanted to come over and look at the building, but Dwayne was not available. If Dwayne can't be there, call me. I'll come and meet them, or
That's. And FAMU came, Dr. Spates came, the assistant dean, she's toured the building. That was the assistant dean for the College of Pharmacy. She enjoyed the visit. She loved it so much. She went back to the campus and she informed the deans of the College of Physical Therapy and College of Nursing, as well as the College of Allied Health, which is where
Right.
they're trying to sync their calendars. I was unclear as to why they couldn't just come to work.
but and I agree, but they need to, they need to get with their calendars and they need to set it, because I'm sure fall classes are going to be starting in the middle of August. That's why I suggested the 1st of August for them to get over here and resolve it and get done with it, so we can move on with that. From that particular, regarding the birthing center, they're in Jacksonville, correct?
Correct.
And you've already met with them once, but sure would like to hear from them again. Are they interested or not interested? And
Well,
I think just a simple email to them stating that, firmly should put that to rest with all entities involved.
well, I know Erica doesn't want to hear this, but you've got to resolve those issues before you resolve Erica, because what if Florida A&M comes in and wants the entire campus?
Exactly,
What if they want the remaining buildings?
exactly.
And I've mentioned this to, Dr. Mayo.
No, you're fine.
And I've said, look, I know you got your heart set on a specific building, but that building may not be
I agree.
available to you. Now, that doesn't mean we can't help Dr. Mayo in other ways, but it may not be that building. And if you consummate all of that in a lease, we're either going to have to go back and try to undo things or what have you. So it's to everybody's advantage to know what everybody's thinking.
Yes, sir.
So it's a valid option to donate the entire campus to FAMU. That is a valid.
I mean, it's still got Meridian that we're.
Well, it would
Process.
That's my point. If we don't get something from FAMU ASAP.
If
what are we
they
gonna
know
do?
that, I can assure you, if they know that it is a option to have the campus donated to them, I'll make sure they send you guys a response.
Well,
ASAP.
Are we gonna donate the campus or are we gonna lease it?
That's.
Or are we going to have a joint venture?
They would have to tell you what the terms and conditions are.
It's not a 1 month process for that. We've been dealing with Meridian for 2 years.
Ah, Yeah,
Got one last thing.
we got one last thing. Okay,
Elevator.
we're still working on it. All right, last thing, the elevator thing.
Mr. Chairman, it is necessary that we repair one of the three elevator banks in the hospital. That would be elevator number 2. And the estimated cost to do so is $23,240.88. And I would ask your approval to make those repairs.
I make a motion that we make the repairs to the elevator and we have the other 2 inspected by the elevator company.
They are inspected.
They are inspected, they're non-functioning.
The other 2?
We've had them all turned off, but when you needed to turn one on, you could use it. Well, now, because of a safety issue, we don't want to do that anymore. So we want to make sure that one of them is in full compliance.
Okay,
Elevators are like pumps, they like to be on or they like to be off. They
That's
don't like to
right.
be shut down.
okay.
That's
Well
the cost
said.
of mothballing that thing. Longer we wait.
Then that we repair the one elevator.
Got a motion to repair the elevator.
Second.
We have a second. Let's just do a motion and a second to repair the elevator on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, that is it. The staff reports in your packets. Any final board member comments?
No.
One for me briefly, I would like, for the next agenda or 2 months from now, if Mr. Kennan is unable to review the, properties, in the interlocal agreement that was given by this board 4 years ago to the city, I would like for it to be reviewed to find out, what we can do to get those back, what we need, and get them back, period. It was, up in February of this year. It's been going on 6 months and
Well, I've been working with Mr. Martin at the city, and so we're trying to piece together interlocal emails and a timeline, but it may not be as clear cut as 4 years from the interlocal the way it was written. But we're about 3 weeks ahead of, we just haven't got a resolution.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're working on it.
Thank
I
you,
knew
sir.
that was coming up,
Thank you, sir.
and I know the new city manager gonna try to get Mr. Williams to talk about that outside of the board at some point.
And he has, and I think they want to make a presentation to you also about the property over here.
Everybody went to property.
Looking forward to it. I have no further comments. Dale, do you have anything?
No, sir, thank
All right.
you.
Thank you all for bearing with me. Let's adjourn.